All right, hey, what's up, guys, and welcome to the latest episode of the movie discussion Pocket Dimension, the dimension where time does not exist, and the only thing that matters is film. As always, the den scenes of the dimension are but two: myself, Cole, and my partner, Ron Jay, and his esteemed colleague. So this week we're doing it's not what the plan was. We did say last week. We did actually announce what the plan was for this week, and it was a different film, but the same director. It was going to be the film Bleeder, sometimes known as The Bleeder, by acclaimed Danish director Nicholas Winding Refn. And it just proved really difficult to find a watchable version of that actually had the English subtitles. Maybe I scrambled a little too late for that, but rather than have a panic or cancel or anything like that, we just decided another one of his films would work. And given that just because we're not doing Bleeder now doesn't mean we won't do it in the future, or one of the others, or Pusher or something like that. For now, we just thought we'll do the one kind of that everyone knows, the American film Drive from 2011, which is definitely what put him on the map as far as Western or North American audiences would go. I mean, I knew who he was. I'd heard of Pusher. I think I'd watched the first one before. And this film was a critical darling, being shown at film festivals, and it showed up in all sorts of critics, best of lists when they did the best of for that year, 2011. So a very well-known film, but still very much keeping with his own directorial style, his sort of techniques and themes and stuff like that. And his latest mainstream one, the Neon Demon, right? It keeps a lot of similar themes going with it too, right down to having like a similar sounding soundtrack. I had a bit of a delay in seeing this film. I think it was just one of those things where sometimes it happens when a film is like so praised, it almost makes me want to not see it.
Yeah, totally.
I'm just like, who cares? I'm almost a little annoyed by the hype, so I probably didn't see this film for, I wouldn't say like a whole year, but it was probably only a few months, because I didn't like wait years. I did see it, but it was after the sort of stuff had died down. I was kind of like, oh, let's see what all the fuss is about. And it is a film I enjoy very much. And like a lot of people have said, I'm sure there's nothing original to say, but it's one of those films where the style and presentation is such that even though it has a fairly good story or good characters, etc., that those aren't necessarily needed to really enjoy the film fully. You can just enjoy it on that sort of stylistic level, as far as cinematography and music and all that stuff and how it blends. It's got a very cool sort of retro. It's a neo-noir film with some retro 80s stuff, particularly the music, the synth, which is very reminiscent of the old style new wave. Although I don't think anything on there is actually old style new wave. It's more current stuff that's kind of just that sounds similar.
Yeah, I believe that's right.
Right. And of course, this has Ryan Gosling, and was probably he's a huge star now. This might have been the thing that turned the corner from him. He was already doing some movies. He'd done The Notebook and stuff, which was fairly well received. He was probably A-list, but I think this is the film that just made him kind of an it guy, which is kind of funny when you think about it, because while he gives a good performance, it's not one of those movies that I think is very demanding of an actor. I don't want to undercut that too much, because I'm no expert on acting, that sort of stuff. But I mean, obviously we have a character that has limited dialogue, and sometimes that can make it tougher because you have to convey more with less. So I don't want to come down too hard, but I really do think this is sort of what made him a really bright star. And in the years, 5 or 6 years since this movie, he's been in just big movie after big movie, and a lot of it very successful.
Yeah, I think he's a good actor.
Yeah,
he gets a little, negative comments because of the pretty boy aspect.
There's always that kind of backlash, which is too bad, because I don't know, he didn't have too many roles that were really in that vein. I mean, yeah, sure, you can say that about any leading man, but The Notebook was really the only sort of sappy type thing he'd done. It was notable for having
The Notebook, but
two Canadian leads, because that was him and Rachel McAdams. I saw him on Canadian TV a couple times, and it didn't mean anything to me. It was something just one of those things in retrospect you look up and find out. I remember most notably he did an episode of Goosebumps.
Yes. I was going to say I know he did a lot of acting as a child,
right?
And I know I've seen him in a lot of stuff.
Yeah, there's other stuff
I'm
too,
gonna
which
pull it up.
I'll try to look to.
Goosebumps, the television show.
Yes, which yeah, was a Canadian production.
Oh wow, he's got that '90s hair going.
Yeah, I don't remember the title of the episode, but I remember what episode it was. There was this one where him and a friend of his find a camera, and it's like this weird alien-looking camera, and every time they use it, like just strange phenomena sort of happen, something like that.
Say cheese and die.
There you go. Say cheese and dive. They always had good catchy titles. R.L. Stein.
Yeah, he was in the Mickey Mouse Club, and he was also.
I don't remember, although again, I watched that in the early '90s. I watched that show. I think I've said this before, but the only one who like went on to other things, and there were several, but the only one I actually can legitimately remember was Britney Spears. I don't remember the others. He's notable because he didn't even sing on the show, and it was hard to get in. Now it's kind of funny to me now that like he was in a musical where I think he does some singing, although I don't think he's ever been known as any sort of triple threat because he just did La La Land, which was a big hit I haven't seen, but I remember he had a fairly limited role. I mean, I don't remember. I mean, I remember in looking it up that he had a fairly limited role on Mickey Mouse Club because he was one of those people they couldn't put out to sing a pop song. So he had very specific the way he was used.
Yeah, he was on there with, I think he's right on the same age as Britney Spears and Justin Timberlake, Christina Aguilera.
Right. He'd be about 37 now.
Yeah, he's about my age.
Yeah. Born in 1980. There you go. Yeah, he'll be 37 in November. There we go. So, yeah.
Yeah, I watched the Mickey Mouse Club a little bit. You know, I wasn't the biggest fan, but I do remember seeing all these kids. And it's just so funny that, I mean, damn near all of them went on to something, you know?
Yeah, so many. See, a Canadian show I didn't watch, but a lot of Canadians who were around my age would remember was a late 90s show, like teen drama called Breaker High. That was like his first sort of big recurring role in television. It was about like high school students that like went to a high school that was literally like on a boat, which is the thing that you can do that. So that's what it was about. I had friends that watched it, but I didn't watch it. He was one of the leading characters on that. And,
he was on the show Are You Afraid of the Dark also.
Yeah. Even before Goosebumps, the completely Canadian Are You Afraid of the Dark.
Yeah, I was going to say that's a Canadian show as well.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, all Canadian stuff until I guess Kung Fu: The Legend Continues isn't Canadian, but had a lot of Canadian content in it. He did, but that was just one episode. He wasn't a recurring character, but I mean, I guess maybe his break into movies was Remember the Titans, which was a big deal because that's a Disney movie. He was one of the players. I think he was one of the assholes.
Was it Disney? Okay.
Yeah, it's a Disney movie. Kind of edgy for Disney, I know, because they say like nigger in it and stuff. But
was he one of the? I don't think he was an asshole. I think he was. He liked.
Oh, he's one of. Oh yeah, he was. Now I remember. Yeah, he was one of the nice ones. Most of them were actually. Yeah.
One of the good ones.
One of the good ones.
Yeah.
Well, I only just recently saw. He did The Believer in 2001.
Yes. What'd you think of that?
That's one I only just recently saw too. I only saw that like about a year ago or so. I'm surprised it's so under the radar.
That's one I always tell people about. I love that movie.
Yeah, that's a cool movie for sure. You know, like if somebody's talking to you about something like American History X, you could point out like this is also a good movie with sort of similar themes and stuff, obviously about white supremacists, neo-Nazis, skinheads, stuff like that.
That he's a neo-Nazi, but he finds out
but
that
he's also Jewish. like he's Jewish. Like I think he always knew he was Jewish, but then he just it's like he wants to know why the neo-Nazis hate the Jews. And then he just gets wrapped up and he's like, oh my God, they're right, you know, type thing. So, yeah.
I should die.
Yeah, it's pretty crazy. But isn't it like loosely based on a true story too? Like there really was a Jewish guy. Yeah. And Murder by Numbers with, what's her name?
Sandra Bullock.
Yeah.
He was in there with, was it Michael Pitt? Was the other kid? Him and Michael Pitt, I think.
He's a weird looking guy.
Yeah.
The other kid I remember. Michael Pitt's not a name I know, but I know I've seen him and stuff because he always had a sort of a distinctive face to me. If this would scroll down. Yes, Michael Pitt.
Cool.
Michael Pitt was a slightly more sinister one, I think.
I'm a big fan of his as well. Two great actors. He was on that show Boardwalk Empire for a while.
Oh, sure. Let's see. I know I've seen him in things. Okay, he looks more normal now. He was kind of awkward looking. Well, I mean, that's true. A lot of people are awkward looking when they're teens, right? So it's just another one of those, oh, look, he's in the Ghost in the Shell remake.
Can't turn down that paycheck, man.
Oh, he played Mason Verger in Hannibal. Okay, I saw him as that. That's interesting.
Yes.
Yeah, I need to start rewatching that show. I was enjoying that show quite a bit. This is what I remember him from, the Funny Games remake.
Yes.
Where he can just, like, they're like, hey, you look positively evil. You should be in this movie, type thing.
Since we were talking about Gus Van Sant movies a few weeks ago, he was in Last Days in 2005. He was a starring role in there.
Never seen it.
Playing essentially Kurt Cobain.
Right.
It's kind of loosely based, I think.
Mm-hmm. No, there's a few movies that based more or less just like, they're like, we need a Kurt Cobain character. They just give it a different name, but it's more or less like Kurt Cobain with a slight facelift, change it a little bit. It's weird that there's never really been a definitive Kurt Cobain biography movie, though. Like a few years ago, there was supposed to be one, and people were talking about fucking, I'm not even kidding, oh, now I can't remember his name, but that Saturday Night Live guy. The little wimpy guy. Adam Sandler's friend. One of Adam Sandler's friends.
David Spade?
Yeah, people were seriously saying he was being considered.
He's twice as old as Kurt Cobain was when he died.
Well, this would have been about 10 years ago.
It's still way too old.
So, it's still too old, yeah. The only thing I can say is, like, well, he has fair hair and he's short, but... But, like, even his voice is different. Because Kurt Cobain's speaking voice, he's one of those guys who was shorter but had a very deep speaking voice.
Mm-hmm.
There was a hockey player named Theo Fleury. He was 5'6", and man, he had a deep. He's still around. He has a really deep voice. I was always struck by it. He was a little guy, but he's one of those guys that his voice probably changed super early too. Like even when he was like a teenager playing junior hockey, he was way down there and stuff. I was always struck by that. I'm still waiting for my voice to change.
I'd be willing to bet that Courtney Love is probably blocking making that movie for one reason or another.
Yeah, I mean, she's been so back and forth on that stuff, right? Like the way they've released, like when it took them forever to release that box set and stuff because she was holding that up and stuff. You know, mostly just trying to figure out the best way she could squeeze money out of it. I think.
Yeah.
I think a lot of people. I don't have a lot of respect for Courtney Love. Not that she hasn't done some things I think are okay, and sometimes I do think people are unfair to her. I do, but at the end of the day, I'm still not a fan.
Yeah.
But anyway, getting back to this film, you know, it's possible there's two films that greatly inspired it, and I think even when we were first talking about doing the show, we were talking about doing at least one of them. We might even do both. And 1978's The Driver is a Walter Hill film. It's one of my favorite films. I love it, and I always have to point out somebody mentions Drive, I'm always like, The Driver's better. I like The Driver more. But and then that one also took inspiration from the 1967 French film Le Samurai, which isn't about an assassin. They change it to a driver in Driver and stuff, but also has a very sort of similar kind of plot structure and stuff, and great style. Part of the very early wave of neo noir, when neo noir was sort of just happening and being a new thing and stuff, and not really part of French New Wave, although. I guess an argument could be made because the timing lines up, although I don't really know stylistically. But also a really great movie. It's possible that in the future we'll do both of those because we both like them. And there's interesting things to say, and comparing them to Drive. And as we talk this one, we'll bring some of it up. But I have to say, I need to watch The Samurai again because there's a lot I'm kind of forgetting right now. It's been a while, so I think that's definitely some on our to-do list down the road is to visit both of those movies and obviously do a bit of a comparison with each other and Drive.
I think it's pretty obvious that it's taken from Driver, but it's much more cinematically going on in this film. I think much more of the
Driver's an absolutely sort of minimalistic.
Exactly, like choreography and the camera work, cinematography. It's It's really impressive, like you were saying earlier. You could almost watch this with the sound off and still understand what's going on, but also really
Yeah, it's a layered film in that it has different aspects to appreciate, and I think that's one of the reasons why it's so well received and well acclaimed, because you can appreciate Gosling's performance, sort of he brings. You can appreciate, as you said, the cinematography, the way it's shot. Some of it is very unique. Like the opening scene is actually filmed by himself, Riding Refn himself. It's at the opening, those scenes that are like shot from the interior of the car, that's him with the camera.
Oh, really?
Yeah, doing that. And that's pretty cool. Like he wanted to give people sort of like what it really feels like to be there. I think it accomplishes that pretty well. It's kind of odd that you don't see that in more movies. Every once in a while, you get the very quick in the car shot, but they don't stay with it. This sequence will stay with it. Like it shows you other stuff too, but you get longer sequences with it, which I can't think of in other films, honestly, unless they've been doing some sense.
I think that's a characteristic of the whole film itself, is it really long cuts. It probably has half as many cuts as the average movie, I would guess. Just because, I mean, the scene just goes. And it really works, especially in this film, just because, you know, there's lots of silences in the dialogue.
Yeah.
You know,
some of them, I'll admit, some of them drive me crazy.
Yes.
I mean, I understand what they're there for, but sometimes I think they're taken too far. Like, as much as I think it's Ryan O'Neal is sort of short and to the point and doesn't speak too much in The Driver, I can handle him. I feel like Ryan Gosling, like they're telling him to go out of his way to like create uncomfortable silences wherever he goes, which I get if they're doing it on purpose. But sometimes I'm just like, say something.
It's a tad too much. I will agree with you, but I think a lot of them are like a lot of the stuff between him and whatever the girlfriend's name is. I don't even know if she has a name in the movie, but
played by Carey Mulligan.
Yeah, Carey Mulligan. But some of them, I mean, they'll have a conversation, and then you know, there's just a 10-second lull in the conversation. It's just, I don't think that happens as much.
Yeah.
You know, I don't know. I guess,
I mean, it's the other end of me. I know I'm one of those people that's so bad with silences that like I just feel the need to blurt out words and fill up silences because I find them so awkward and uncomfortable that I feel the need to fill them. So I'll just keep talking, you know. Which, and I realize I'm one end of the spectrum, and there's people that are completely different stuff. So I mean, I try to appreciate that, but sometimes I still can't help but think it's just a little too much. It's not gonna, you know, ruin the movie for me or anything like that.
Well, it's like she told him that my husband's gonna get out of prison next week. Nothing. Like,
no response.
No response. Then
not even like good or okay.
I'm happy for you, or damn it, or you know. I really wanted to bang you before he got out.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah, I'll agree with that though. But it's unique. I would say say that about it.
Sure. So that's Carey Mulligan who plays Irene.
But I saw this film in the theater, and I didn't. I
wish I had. You didn't like it at the time.
I didn't like it at all. It's really odd. And you know, then you know, Pizzow has always championed the film.
Yeah,
so I was
big fan.
I've gone back and watched it quite a few times since, and I love it more and more every time I watch it, just because I think a lot of the reasons that I didn't like it in the theater is why I like it now, just because, you know, it's one of those that, you know, benefits from multiple viewings.
Yeah.
But
also, yeah, you also benefit from if you've watched like, you know, less mainstream stuff, because it's like you said, like how fast, like ever since I'd say at least the mid '90s, although you could even earlier you could argue was happening, the practice of having like quick cuts in movies where like the average cut is maybe 3 seconds before, you know, it moves off to something, so that by the time this movie comes out and you're well into the 2000s, like the movie going public has just been like hammered with movies that are like so they're just so for like a short attention span.
Yeah, exactly.
And they jump and they cut and everything's coming at you, that like it's a movie like this has reminded me of how much I appreciate so many of these movies that, like, you know, take time to breathe. They take time to establish shots and move in. It's not all about quick cutting from here to here and here. It's actually letting things unfold in at least a somewhat natural way. It's still a movie. It's not completely natural, in a somewhat natural way, organic if you want to use that and stuff. So I can just imagine, like, I think a lot of people felt the same way as you did, because I think, and and maybe they change their minds too, because it's almost like you go into the theater and it's so different than what you're expecting in a way. It's than what you've been experiencing the last, bunch of times you went to the theater, that you almost find it off-putting or irritating.
Well, I had it really talked up to me, and by a fellow fan, that said it's the best thing ever, and I didn't even put the connection of the director together. He just said, "Go see Drive. It's fucking awesome. Best thing I've seen all year." I took my wife to go see it, and we, she didn't like it very much either. But I bet a lot of people say it's boring because this movie is classified as a drama. Even though there's lots of action, lots of fighting, lots of car chases, So I would be willing to bet that people just, because it lacks the cuts, because even the car chase.
Yeah, the car chases aren't the over-the-top fare that we've come to expect.
So well, though.
Yeah. As I've gotten older and, I've, as much as I enjoy over-the-top action and stuff like that, I've come to this, maybe part of it is being a martial arts fan too. I really just appreciate stunts that are things that can be done in real life, and I really like seeing like a good driving stunt, a good physical stunt with a person doing something. I like that a lot more than something that we know is 100% fake, and they have to. I mean, this is a movie; they still have to, do stuff that I keep saying, sorry about that, people. But this is a movie. It's still artificial. They have to control the conditions, and they do stretch the truth a little bit on it. But for the most part, the stuff that's happening, none of it is that we see is like, well, that's a physical impossibility, that kind of stuff. And so that's the kind of action that I've really come to appreciate as I've gotten older. Stuff that people could really do. I remember feeling that way about like when I saw, what was it, Ong Bak, the Thai Warrior. I was just impressed that Tony Jaa wasn't doing the Jet Li thing. He was doing things that a person can really do if they trained and stuff. And sure, they probably had to do multiple takes and stuff, but there weren't wires lifting him up. There weren't green screens. And that's why I started to feel a lot about other kind of stunts too, stuff with vehicles too, driving, which is even more difficult. And it's cool seeing a movie with driving stunts, but it's not going to, well, obviously the big opposite would be the Fast and Furious movies, which just defy all logic and physics, and there's nothing wrong with that. That's what they're going for, and that's fine. And if you're a fan of those movies, I get it. But at the end of the day, I prefer seeing the more grounded real life stuff because it just makes you appreciate it all the more. Because that it took some real skill. And I'm not saying, I'm sure there's some skillful stunt work in those movies. There would have to be some skillful driving, so I'm not trying to take that away. I'm just saying when it comes to something like Drive that's a lot more low-key, I'm just able to appreciate it a lot more.
Yeah, Pizza, I'll ask you to discuss the symbolism of the scorpion.
I always just thought it was kind of like, even though it's a scorpion, I always thought it had to do with just being a lone wolf type thing. I thought it was sort of a symbol of him being on his own. Because for one thing, it's weird. It's like because it's like in a very individual type statement. it's like the snakeskin jacket from Wild at Heart. That's what it makes me think of. Makes me think of what's his name? Cage saying, "This is my snakeskin jacket. It represents my belief in personal freedom and something like individuality." I always think that when I see the scorpion thing, because I always think, well, obviously it's a weird jacket. He's going to get looks, but he doesn't care because he's his own man. So to me, I don't know if there's anything more that ties into the scorpion itself. I always just thought it was a big symbol of individuality and forging your own path and not being attached to other people and not caring what other people thought. That's kind of what I thought, because he's not a flashy guy.
Yeah.
And yet he's wearing a jacket that seems very flashy.
I think they kind of beat you over the head with the symbolism because it's, he tells the story of the scorpion and the frog, or he asked the kid if he's ever heard the. Oh crap!
That's actually in there. I did, of course, I didn't think of that. The first time I heard that was in an episode of MacGyver when I was a kid.
Really?
That was the first time I ever heard it. That's how an episode ended. I can't remember the specifics of the episode, but there was some woman they were trying to save, and she tries to kill them, and they're forced to kill her. And then one of the recurring characters, the older guy, turns and tells the people the story about the scorpion and frog. And it did stick with me. I was quite young. So, so that's actually the first time I heard that.
Him wearing the scorpion jacket would be like him carrying the scorpion on his back. the way he drives the scorpions around. He carries them on his back until they bring him into their world by stinging him.
Mm.
That's why he doesn't carry a gun. He doesn't want to be involved. He just wants to drive.
Yeah, he's a frog amongst scorpions, but he's pretty intense. If I drive for you, you give me time and a place. I give you a 5-minute window. Anything happens in that 5 minutes, and I'm yours no matter what. I don't sit in while you're running it down. I don't carry a gun. I drive.
I love it, man. I love the dialogue.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's better. I mean, the driver character in The Drivers has something similar to say, but he doesn't say it as cool.
Mm-hmm.
They punch it up a bit for this.
I like when he goes to eat. He's getting like a bite to eat at a diner, and the guy recognizes him. Says, "Hey, you did a job with my brother and I, or whatever." He starts talking to him about a job. He says, "How about this? You shut your fucking mouth, or I'll knock your teeth down your throat and shut it for you," or something like that. Yeah. He's a really soft-spoken guy. Rarely talks, but he really shuts people down.
Yeah,
that demeanor,
which is again the same thing as The Driver, where it's the same thing. He doesn't carry a gun and stuff, but you find out he fits in this world fine because he's very tough and he can look after himself. In that movie, a few people try to fuck with him, and he beats the shit out of them, and it's kind of similar. That was one of the things. This has nothing to do with anything. This is just a little pet peeve, but a lot of people are a really big fan of the movie Thief. James Caan is kind of a similar guy in that he's supposed to be professional. He doesn't do all that stuff. He's a thief. But when it came to being physical and stuff like that, he could do it. He could be intimidating. And that was my big problem with the movie because I just didn't think James Caan pulled it off. I didn't buy James Caan as this tough guy. I just couldn't. I always found it laughable whenever he started threatening people and stuff in that movie. I just wish it was some other actor because, I don't know, other people might think it's perfect. I like the film Thief. I just kind of wish it was somebody else because it's really important you buy him as a really tough character in the same way. Like, I buy Ryan Gosling in this. He has a sort of intensity to it. It's like, yeah, it's like he's soft-spoken and whatever, but you don't want to mess with him.
Isn't James Caan a badass in Godfather 2?
Yeah.
They do some pretty badass stuff in there. I know not in the first one, really, but...
Yeah, in the second one. And I don't have as much problem with that, really. So it's not even all necessarily it being James Caan. Maybe it's just the way he plays it. I don't know. Because I don't really remember having any sort of problem with him in Godfather movies, although it's been a long time since I've seen that, too.
Thief is probably my favorite Michael Mann movie.
Right. And I did want to bring it up because this movie has some very Michael Mann-esque stuff going on in it, for sure. I'm sure that the director would openly admit to that.
A lot of the pacing is very similar to the way Mann paces his films.
Sure. So, I mean, you've got a lot of stuff in there. You've got sort of Walter Hill stuff. There's even some stuff in here that reminds me a little bit of David Lynch's Mulholland Drive. Mm-hmm. Because it almost sometimes some of the scenes have sort of a dreamy quality to them, which is really interesting. Something I really like the movie because it's one thing to do that if that's the whole movie, but to do a movie that's supposed to be sort of like gritty and crime type stuff and still put that dreamy stuff in. And the music helps because the music is all sort of what I would classify as dream pop. A lot of it is.
You mean especially the scene in the elevator where they step in with that guy who he knows is trying to kill him. Right. And it fades to black and like he kisses her. And it, basically just has a little moment between them for,
Yeah, that's really well done. It's one of the few times in a film where, like, besides, oh, here's the romantic kiss, where you can actually analyze the kiss a little more. Because it's almost like him sort of saying goodbye to her in a way. Because it's like, you've known me as a weird kind of quiet guy. And what I have to do right now is necessary to save you, but it's still a very awful, shocking thing, and I'm going to have to do it. So we'll have a kiss before, your perception of me changes.
You want to see what's inside of this guy's skull?
Yeah, stomps the guy's head open.
That's brutal, man. It's some brutal stuff in this movie.
Yeah, reminds me, that bit reminds me of Old Boy. Just because it was very claustrophobic and very brutal and to the point, which is like what a lot of the violence in Old Boy is. It's all right in on top of you. There's not much room, and it's intense and harsh.
I love Old Boy. I got to go watch The Driver and Old Boy tonight.
I still don't own Old Boy, but when I was back in Sydney, I found Sympathy for Mr. Vengeance. I got that for $4 on DVD, so that's pretty good. Part of the Vengeance trilogy. But I was gonna say, there's something else. There was something about that scene. I was trying to look it up because where he actually asked for help from a director. Oh, yes, he spoke to the director of Irreversible, which is known for its very shocking rape scene. He actually spoke to him to ask him about how he did it because he wanted this idea of going from romance, tender romance, right into shocking violence and not having it, feel too abrupt. I guess was his question.
Is that Gaspar?
That's him. Yeah.
No way.
As soon as you say it, it came back to me. I had it here, and of course, then I lost it. But yes, he so apparently, Winding Refn did ask him about that for some input on how to do the elevator scene because he thought that the way they kind of went from tenderness to horrible violence and that, I guess he thought was well done.
Yeah, he knows how to do it. That's for sure.
Yeah, I guess he would be a good guy to ask.
And also like the Christina Hendricks shotgun blast.
Mm-hmm.
That's another good bit of gore.
Oh yeah, that's right. When the two assassins come for him, there's two of them, right? Yeah, I think.
Yeah.
Yeah, in the shower, and he's with the girl.
he knocks the gun out of the guy's hand and grabs some sort of a towel rod.
Yeah.
And stabs it in this guy's chest.
Do what you have to do. And in keeping with Driver, he's never named, he's just Driver. Mm-hmm. In the movie The Driver, they go full on. No one has a name in the movie The Driver.
Yeah. Girl.
As I was saying, minimalism in The Driver, you'll notice that no one changes clothes. That movie takes place over several different days, but everyone's always wearing the same clothes. No one ever changes. Not just the main guy, everyone, which is kind of cool. And in this movie, of course, they changed, but he still has his signature jacket. It was one of those movies that was 2011, so it was just like, who could be in this movie since people really care about him right now? Bryan Cranston. And that Bryan Cranston plays like the closest thing he has to a friend. Because what we have is the setup is he's a stunt driver by day. He moonlights as the getaway driver. And Bryan Cranston is kind of like his friend and mentor who I guess gets the jobs for him and stuff, the stunt jobs.
Yeah,
and he's right. Got
Breaking Bad.
He have like
winding up.
Mm-hmm. And he's got like a bum leg.
Yeah, because Nino broke his hips, crushed his hips.
Nino, played by the amazing Ron Perlman, one of the best character actors ever. Props to.
Man, I think Albert Brooks does a great job in this movie. He's
very good at being he's very good at being sinister and scary. Who'd have thought?
He's not the comedian that you remember.
No. Yeah, it was definitely very different for me. I'd never seen him in anything even sort of halfway serious before, I don't think. I mean, those roles exist for him, I think, but I hadn't seen it.
Yeah, there's something else I've seen him do, something similar. Of course, he plays, the Nemo's dad in the Finding Nemo films.
Huh. That's right.
That's really where I know his voice from. And
it's also, there's lots of movies that have the mafia and gangs and stuff. I like this sort of representation because what we have in Nino and Albert Brooks and stuff is like they're actually Jewish and they're gangsters. And they feel especially upset about the oppression they face because of the Italian gangsters looking down on them. Like Nino at one point says, like, I'm 58 years old and they still call me a fucking kike or something like that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
They pinch my cheeks like I'm a child.
Yeah. And Perlman said, I always wanted to play a Jewish man who wants to be an Italian gangster. Because that's what I am, a Jewish boy from New York. Well, that automatically cemented it for me, which is why he wanted to do the movie.
Yeah, I was going to ask. I assumed he was Jewish.
Yeah, he is.
And Albert Brooks couldn't deny that if he wanted to.
Yeah, he's a good sort of bad guy because he has some of those standard bad guy elements, obviously, but he's not like a cliche.
Mm-hmm.
He stands out the way he acts in his dialogue and stuff when he's first talking about getting him to race for him.
Well, he's almost a very likable guy.
Right.
At the beginning, it seems like he's just a straight shooter,
Sure.
When he talks with Driver, their first, altercation. because he's going to drive a race car for these guys. They don't really elaborate on that very much, other than saying you're going to drive a race car, and it's Shannon. That's Bryan Cranston's character's idea to trying to make a little bit extra money.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, they don't say what the league is or anything like that.
Doesn't really matter. Doesn't. Yeah.
No, not really.
And Oscar Isaac plays Standard. He's Irene's estranged husband who's been in prison for a few years, I would guess.
Mm-hmm. That's right. Yeah. So and they have a son. And that's the sort of the main crux of the drama of the film, is that he gets involved with Irene. He starts to care about her and the son, even though this is obviously a man that has lived his life sort of by a code of not getting close to other people, not forming attachments because of the life he leads and stuff like that. But he winds up caring about them and wanting to protect them, and that's how it changes. Because it's actually nothing the driver himself has been into that really it really ramps up the danger. It's actually her stupid husband who had made some deals while he was in prison, I guess, to protect himself, and that's what led down to this whole thing and the stolen money and the danger. It was actually him, and he just chooses to involve himself in it because he cares about them.
Yeah,
the driver,
because he doesn't want the husband to get killed.
Mm-hmm.
That's what's going to happen. Because the amount of money keeps increasing that he owes him, is what he says. So he wants him to go pull off a job where he robs a pawn shop.
Mm-hmm.
And that's where a driver comes into play. He's going to be the driver. But I think it's so funny when he finds Standard, he's just gotten the utter shit kicked out of him in the parking garage of this of their apartment complex. And he walks right past him and goes over to the kid, and he checks to see if the kid's okay. Yeah. I think it speaks a lot. You don't know anything, so you kind of have to just assume that it speaks a lot to his relationship with his father, or lack thereof one.
Yeah,
it's kind of what I assume.
Because this is a movie that's a crime drama and full of violence and danger and stuff like that, and obviously harsh characters that can mean each other harm and stuff like that. But you do have a nice sort of bonding scene where he goes out for a drive with Irene and her son, and they go down to a little spot by a river and stuff, and it's all with the music. It's all very nice. It shows you different sides of LA. I don't have anything. Well, I do, but in movies, I don't have anything against LA. The fact is, it's LA, so there's tons of movies set there, and that just means by the law of averages, most of them are forgettable. So to me, this always stands out as a movie that I like how it sort of portrays LA. There's a few others, but this one's up there. I like how they, it opens. We get right in the city at night for that scene, but we get some stuff sort of on the outskirts. We get again them going outside to this little spot of nature and stuff like that. I like how it presents LA, because LA is a very big city with a lot of layers, a lot of different sections and stuff. And to be honest, a lot of it can look quite bland, as a lot of cities can, especially a larger city and stuff. But this is one of my favorite movies with that sort of setting. Most of my other ones are period pieces, like LA Confidential, which is the LA of the 50s, which was very different from what it is now. But this movie, you can even make a bit of a comparison there, just the way things have kind of that dreamy kind of glow to them in a way. So it's more like the LA kind of our dreams, or that we imagine, rather than the reality. And that's what I find so interesting about the movie, how it walks the line between being gritty and realistic and still having sort of a dreamy, otherworldly quality to it. There's not too many movies that even attempt that, let alone pull it off. And that might be my absolute, if I had to break it down to one element I like the best, I think that's what I like the best about the film. And that's through the use of many things. That's how the camera, the music, even the lighting. The movie has really good lighting. People don't talk enough about lighting in movies, but this movie has excellent lighting.
You don't notice it unless it's bad. That's why people don't talk about it.
That's true. Pretty much. but good use of light and color. But those are some of my favorite things in movies: light and color. That's why it's talked about a lot now. Like, so many movies just look so drab, like they're being shot through like a weird filter. Even some of the Marvel movies have it, which really upsets me because the Marvel world is supposed to be bright and colorful, and it is, but everything seems a little bit toned down.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm sure it was a shit movie anyway. Everybody says it was a shit movie, but like that Power Rangers movie, if anything, should have been bright and colorful for the Power Rangers movie, and yet it looked like it was shot through like some sort of gray lens. So you have like but you have got characters wearing, you know, a red suit and a blue suit and a green suit, and it all just looks dim. And that's what a lot of movies are like now.
Yeah, I don't know what was going on with that movie. I haven't seen it, but I know what you're talking about.
I mean, it was a ridiculous movie anyway. That's hardly the main thing that's wrong with that movie. I've heard, like, you know, everything about that movie is just garbage.
I feel like it could have been done, though. They could have pulled it off. Now is the perfect time to do it.
It's not that hard. The bar is not very high when it comes to something like Power Rangers, right? Nobody ever really took it that seriously to begin with. All you just do is ramp up what made it appealing in the first place and put it in a cinematic world. And as usual, the geniuses that do these things completely shot in the wrong direction. They're like, no, we'll make it a little more gritty, or I don't know.
You know, it's like Pixels. You know, like Pixels could have been a good movie. I mean,
it seemed like a great setup.
Yeah, and coulda, woulda, shoulda.
Yeah, so that happens a lot. It's true, though. I mean, if you took the script of Pixels and gave it some changes and stuff, you might have had at least a watchable movie instead of what we got. So that happens a lot. There's lots of movies that have lots of potential, at least when you hear about them, and then the execution, you're just like, that was fucking awful.
Yeah. In theory, they sound great.
Which you can say about almost anything, I suppose.
Rob Zombie's going to make a Halloween movie. It's going to be really, really nasty and about trailer park people.
Yeah, and most people are like, that's perfect. It's like a scary movie. He's a scary guy with scary music. It's a match made in heaven.
Which, yeah. Well, I guess we won't get into that, but
we won't go there. We do that often enough anyway.
I really want to, but I guess we won't. Yeah.
Yeah, well, maybe we'll circle around back to it. I don't know. So I'm just trying to find another point to go on in this movie. It was based on a novel, which I think was the same name. Yeah, same name. 2005 novel. The main most of it is pretty much the same. The only thing different, I think, is the novel. It's sort of, the events are sort of told a bit out of sequence. The movie, I think, just makes it a linear plot. I haven't read the novel, so I can't really tell you how that compares. But it's definitely a case of putting the novel on the map. It wasn't like it was a big novel that then everyone's like, oh, let's see the adaptation. It was one of those instances where it's a fairly well-known novel, but not like a phenomenon or anything that gets adapted. Some of the best films are that way. Because there's just so many expectations when you have like a novel that's already a big like literary phenomenon and stuff. Because then everybody's all over it about the casting and everything. And this this can be a lot more quietly done.
Sure.
Which I think works to its benefit. But so I mean, some of the more obvious stuff again. His character, it's kind of like the man with no name in the Sergio Leone movies, in that he's sort of he's not exactly a drifter, but he literally has no name. He's the driver. So a very easy comparison there to like some sort of gunslinger or something like that. And then you can make the leap into like from gunslingers to samurais. So you could even, you know, compare some of the themes and stuff going on here with like a Kurosawa film, to tell you the truth. Which is something I really respond to, and I just mean because I love Japanese stuff and samurais. I just mean all that stuff that ties in, like the lone warrior, and it's one of those times where the character is such an interesting archetype that we actually kind of like that they're kind of a blank slate, that there isn't really much depth or characterization. Although we do see a little with his, because obviously what we're seeing, as I said before, is as a guy that sort of lived his life by a code, but now he is changing. Something has happened to him. He's met these people, and he changes because he wants to help them, even though he knows he's putting not just his way of life, but his his life itself at risk for it. So and that's a cool kind of hero to get behind, because in a lot of films it's just like, well, they're the heroes. There's no reason to question it. That's what they do, and here they go. So I'm sure some people even refer to him as an anti-hero. I don't think that's quite right. He's just more of sort of a circumstantial hero almost. I don't want to say reluctant hero either, although maybe that fits. But I mean, anti-hero is a pretty big label, so if somebody says that, I can see it, because he's not really on the right side of the law. He does help bad guys, even though he doesn't himself hurt people. He shows he's very capable of hurting people, but in the movie, he only does hurt bad people for good reasons and stuff. So, yeah, another one of those sort of morally ambiguous types that we all loved so much. Sort of what we often refer to, like, is in fiction as black and gray morality, where nobody's like really pure and good, but there's just sort of different levels of being like kind of like less bad.
Well, I feel like everybody was on board with him until Christina Hendricks' character is in the hotel room or motel room, and he's like, you know, he smacks the shit out of her. I feel like everybody was on board until then, but you know, you just got a son's father killed.
Right, and I don't want to go down that whole road about depictions of violence against women in the media, because it's very fraught with peril and stuff, and I don't want to tell audiences that they shouldn't, I guess, be upset by it, but at the same time, it's the real world. The stakes are high. He's not taking any sort of sadistic joy out of it. The fact is, if it was a man, it would have been the same thing. He just sort of deals with what he has to deal with.
Well, that's equality.
There's equality for you. I mean, it's funny. I always point to, especially the old, even in the newer one, but the old James Bond films have plenty of misogynistic and sexist things going on. But if you want some equality, there's just a great moment in, I think it's Man with the Golden Gun, where Roger Moore knows that like in many situations, that the woman in the room with him is actually working for the bad guy, and he like grabs her, gives her a smack, knocks her onto the bed, and grabs her arm. She's just like, "You're hurting my arm." He's like, "I'll break it if you don't tell me what I want to know." It's like, well, there you go.
Yeah.
It's like, I get it. He's a big womanizer, and we can all pile on James Bond for that and stuff, but I have no issue with that scene. He's dealing with a potential threat, and you can't pretty it up sometimes. And I mean, if you're the type of person that is particularly sensitive to violence against women, there might be some very good reasons for that. So I would never criticize that. But sometimes I think it does go to a point that it's almost offensive. Like, I remember I watch MMA, and sometimes every once in a while, if there's a comment about women fighting in MMA, like somebody will just say like, "I just can't watch this. Like, I get nothing out of I think it's wrong seeing two women fight." They're like, "I'm all for seeing men, in the boxing ring or MMA, but women, it just turns me off." Well, fine, you can't help what you like if you don't like it. But to me, it almost seems sort of backwards in a way, because everybody's entitled to beat up on each other if they want to for sport, because they're athletes proving themselves.
I almost like it more than the men's. I mean, because they've got so much to prove. It's like, not only do they have to go against those stereotypes, but
but then they have to actually bring it, and exactly. That's what I mean. As much as women in like a combat sport, I'm sure because of it's like this in all sports, but especially in combat sport because of what it is, they're all sort of supporting each other. But the fact is, you still have to go out there and defeat each other, fight each other and stuff. They're athletes, they're competitors, and that's what they do. So I don't know. I think there is a type of man who is a little too sensitive to that, to the point where it almost does seem a little backwards and almost offensive. I'm not going to get offended on anybody's behalf and stuff, but and sometimes you can't help what you like or what you're spawned to. It doesn't necessarily mean any sort of prejudice.
Sure. I mean, like, I like to watch women's tennis more than men's tennis. And I like to watch men's basketball more than I like to watch women's basketball. It's just,
sure.
Because it's more competitive for one thing. But
yeah. Yeah. I mean, with all the prejudices in the world, and obviously there are many, and now living in a world that is very sensitive to that, which is mostly good, but it can also backfire horribly, as we've seen. Um, I think it's still possible to, have preferences and not have them mean anything deep and psychological. For instance, like I'll admit that I find certain ethnicities more attractive, more my type than others, and that is not some sort of racial superiority put down thing. Anything. It's just people are attracted to what they're attracted to, and I'd like to think that you don't have to explain it and justify it all the time, and say, oh, well, I'm not a racist, I'm not sexist. I mean, I get it. It's a complicated world. It's very hard drawing these lines, figuring out exactly what is racism, what is prejudice, what is sexism, because all the time now, especially with social media, especially if somebody says something on Twitter, it very quickly all sorts of people can react to it in a way that you never even thought was possible. Neil Gaiman, I follow Neil Gaiman, and the other day he posted a picture of I think it was his. I can't remember, but I think it was his. But he'd done a story. I think it was one of his stories. It was a retelling of Sleeping Beauty, and in this one, I think she gets kissed by another woman, and somebody had drawn a picture and shown it of the woman kissing Sleeping Beauty and stuff like that. And one of his retweets of it, somebody wrote how it was nice and stuff, but it's just but still. But still, kissing someone who is unconscious, who you've never met, irregardless of gender, is wrong.
Yeah.
And Neil Gaiman wrote, maybe you should read the story. Because it's just people are just so quick to jump on these things and these hot button issues without any sort of context. They just blunder into it because they're like, I've pointed out some, and I get it. I know what the term is. People will say there's a social justice warrior at work. The people that. Which is too bad. Social justice warrior should be a good thing. Being a warrior for social justice is a good thing. But now, because of this backlash, it's a bad label. Because what it really means is people that blurt out stuff without even thinking. Because they're just if they're just I found something that could potentially be offensive or bad, and I'm the one that pointed it out, even though they don't give a thought to context or anything like that. And so now we live in a world where social justice warrior, which sounds like something very good, is usually used almost as an insult. I mean, if somebody accuses you of being a social justice warrior, they're not saying, hey, you fight for everyone's rights and equalities. What they're saying is you're annoying and self-righteous. That's probably what they mean.
I feel like as long as there's not some sort of deep-seated hatred or evil intentions, why would it be considered oppression or sexist or racist or whatever?
I know, and it gets even more complicated if someone is actually trying to make a joke, because it's well, what's funny and what's offensive, and whoa, it's all.
I saw a good quote from the girl that plays Arya Stark on Game of Thrones.
Oh, yeah.
Macy Williams. She said, this is about feminism. She said, I feel like we should stop calling feminists feminists and just start calling people who aren't feminists sexist, and then everyone else is just human.
Sounds good to me.
Yeah, I mean.
Because that's the other thing. A feminist should be a good thing, but usually it gets skewed as a bad thing. It doesn't mean you're for equality. It means you somehow are against men or want some sort of superior edge from it. Yeah, I mean, that's how it goes. We've got labels, and they're never going to be perfect. So there's always going to be people contesting them and what they actually mean.
Yet, but maybe we're on the right track to getting there at some point, because it's like a generational thing. I think the younger generations are cooler with stuff than. Oh, you're 13 years old and don't have a man, don't have a husband yet with those childbearing hips.
Yeah, there's a lot of that going on too.
But I mean, I think the days of that are, fading.
I hope so.
But,
reminds me of my dating life in my 30s. It's not my expectations; it's other people's. And again, there's nothing wrong with wanting to get married or have kids or stuff like that. I just think that sort of pressure does ramp up when you hit a certain age for men and women.
Yeah, I think it's worse for women than it is for men.
I think so, absolutely.
Because you actually do have a physical clock that.
I know, and that's why I'm always, I don't try to get after anybody that I don't judge them for and stuff. But
you can just, pull a Matthew McConaughey and. I keep getting older, but they stay the same age.
Yeah.
You could just
I mean,
keep dating women younger and younger, and you know.
I've gone down that
whatever
road
you want.
before, and I don't know.
Certain
but that's a
degree
whole
of maturity, I think.
Sure. So yeah, this movie, as we said, very well acclaimed. It's holding down to 92% on Rotten Tomatoes. Very high score on Metacritic. And was on many people's lists. Some of them for #1 film of 2011. And as we said before, definitely cemented Ryan Gosling's place sort of in the upper echelon of actors, and brought Nicholas Winding Refn sort of into the mainstream for people that weren't familiar with the European stuff he'd done.
Right. He has a really odd style because, he did that movie Bronson.
Yes.
And that film feels British to me. This film feels American. All of his other stuff feels, Danish.
Danish, sure, yeah.
Or, Norwegian. A really unique style, I think.
Mm-hmm. Well, I mean,
you can see
very adaptable, because I mean, Bronson should feel British. This film should feel American. So he's very good at getting that across and sort of giving them the look and feel that subject matter should entail.
But I guess we could talk about a few of his other films before we get off.
Sure, I was also going to say, obviously, the people putting the pieces together, think about Danish and stuff like that. Yes, he has many collaborations going back to when he was, unknown over here with actor Mads Mikkelsen.
Right.
He was in the movie that we were going to watch, Bleeder.
And in Pusher 1, 2, and 3.
And in all the Pushers. And I think Valhalla Rising, too.
Oh, was he?
Which I haven't seen. Yes, he's in Valhalla Rising. Which is supposedly a very Scottish-type feeling movie, from what I've heard.
I was going to say I've seen it, but it's been quite a while. I think it felt different than the other ones, but
I was kind of interested. I was kind of interesting when it came out because I thought, oh, it sounds kind of like a movie similar to the 13th Warrior.
Yeah,
because it's like somebody traveling with that group, like he's an outsider and stuff. 13th Warrior is kind of underrated. I mean, it's not great, but it's kind of overlooked. I mean, when you think of those Michael Crichton adaptations, most of them are sort of like they're either right or they're horribly wrong. I think it kind of falls in the middle. It's decent. It's definitely has some differences from Eaters of the Dead, which I haven't read in so many years that I could barely really remember it. But yeah, so it was the Pusher trilogy and Bleeder that were his first efforts in the late 90s. Bleeder is very similar itself to that. I mean, they're both crime drama films, I think set in Denmark. Very street level stuff going on. Bleeder, I think, was supposed to have one of those like sort of dual narratives where we follow characters on separate narratives, and eventually they sort of wind up crossing paths. I think that's how it was supposed to go. I didn't actually wind up watching it, but hopefully in the near future I will be able to watch it. Butcher itself is a pretty simple sort of plot. You've got somebody who's like a low-level drug dealer. A deal goes wrong, loses a bunch of money, and then he's just basically on a desperate mission to raise the money back because obviously the people that he owes the money to are very dangerous and will kill him. The film, I mean, already has a few remakes. A British remake came out in 2012. Apparently, there's like an Indian, like Bollywood version that came out. So Butcher was pretty well known, at least by people that like were into film. It was something I always I don't mean always, but probably in the early 2000s was when I first heard of it, and probably saw it around maybe 2004, 2005, something like that. It's another thing that definitely needs to be rewatching. And yeah, so we're happy to talk about Drive, but that really wasn't the plan. We were going to probably maybe work our way up to Drive and talk about some of the earlier stuff first, but that's just not how it worked out. But I haven't seen the whole trilogy. I don't think I've seen any of 3, and I might have seen the first few minutes of 2. And I remember that situation because I was there watching it, and then something happened. And I had to leave, which is not normal. Usually I can just watch a movie. But yeah, and yes, Mads Mikkelsen is in all 3 of those, I believe. I think Nicholas Winding Refn himself even has a cameo as a character in those, and it's got a lot in common with some of those more well-known movies like A Mean Streets or something like that. Even some stuff from like The French Connection. But I'm trying to think what else I do here. Well, Jason disposed. We've got right. We also consider, besides this one, doing the newer one, the Neon Demon, which, as we said, although it's a completely different sort of setup and story, it's about models, has a lot. It has a lot presentation-wise in common with Drive, and the soundtrack is kind of the same sort of style. And it's kind of amazing how that works so well for 2 really completely different movies as far as subject matters goes. Neon Demon's got Ellie Fanning, Keanu Reeves, Jenna Malone. I haven't seen Jenna Malone in a while. She's one of those actresses that I was so used to seeing like playing a teenager. Even when she was in her earlier 20s, she still convincingly played a teenager. She's in Donnie Darko, which we did an episode on, if you want to check that out. She's in Saved. She's in a couple other things. And now suddenly she's probably, I guess, in her early 30s. And she has quite an interesting role in this film, in Neon Demon, which really hits you over the head with its commentary on the world of modeling, but that's okay.
Well, yeah, I think
it will literally consume you.
It left people wanting more. I think they wanted it
That's
to be
kind of how I felt.
Yeah, a little fleshed out, a little bit more. I can totally see that. I really enjoyed it though, like stylistically. Yeah.
Good role for Keanu Reeves, who we've talked about a lot on the show. Cool sort of thing for him to do.
Who was he in the film?
He's like I don't know if he's like a drug dealer or a pimp or something, but I think he's kind of like a pimp, and he's like really mean to the girls. And
I don't even remember him in there.
At the hotel. Just let me reorient myself. He's some sort of like scuzzbag. Yeah. I know that much. He's like a scuzzbag. I think at one point he's like either trying to pimp or hit on like some 14-year-old or something like that. Like,
I think he is a pimp. Yeah.
Yeah, he's like a pimp trying to like. I think that's what happens to like the failures, that he just that he takes charge of them. But yeah, he's really I'm used to seeing him being more clean cut in this. He's like really the opposite of that, I guess. He plays, looking up here, his character's name is Hank.
It's so funny. I was watching that.
Yeah, it's like he manages like this. Sorry, it's like he manages this shit motel, and but he also is like pimps out girls on like the side.
Yeah, I was watching the Dark Shadows movie last night, and yeah, I was trying to figure out where I saw Bella Heathcote before. She's in Neon Demon.
Not sure I know that name. She's one of the girls in Neon Demon. Okay,
one of the main girls.
Yeah, there's a few. Christina Hendricks, Ellie Fanning, Jenna Malone.
Christina Hendricks is in that too. Okay.
Yeah, she is. Well, I can't remember who.
Yeah, I enjoyed the movie. It's not something I would go back and watch, like some of his other stuff.
Mm-hmm. I liked it more than Only God Forgives. I thought Only God Forgives was kind of a letdown. It was him and him and Gosling paired together again. It's like, you're my new Mads Mikkelsen, Gosling.
Yeah.
But Only God Forgives had some interesting things to it. I just didn't feel like it. I've said this about other movies too. I didn't feel like it came together sort of as a whole.
I agree with that. It's Bangkok. Really cool, cinematography in that one as well. Really, interesting lighting. Keeping with the neon theme.
Sure. Yeah. Which I like a lot when it's done, but isn't always needed.
It almost seems like he's becoming a cliche of himself, doesn't it?
Yeah, you think it's a little early for that.
Well, I mean, I think Drive, like a lot of people try to copy Drive, like, all the time. It's
sure.
why watching Drive now feels, a different experience because it seems like you see it all the time. People trying to do it, but not nearly as successful.
Mm-hmm.
Trying to pull off that style.
He definitely has some tells in sort of the subject matter too, as we said. We've got Ryan Gosling's character, the driver. We've got a guy who said he's not really a hero, but because of circumstances he's come against, he sort of had to change himself. You kind of see that in the other movies too, where you have people that are forced to change or forced to adapt in some way to get through some sort of situation. So, and it's usually the point I guess they're kind of make is like, this person was always had the potential. They had the capable to be good or more or something like that. And what happens in the movie is sort of them realizing that potential. Because you do that in Pusher as well too. I think in Pusher 2, Mads Mikkelsen actually just like winds up like, I think he kills his own father. It's hard to remember. He has like some weird father issues and stuff like that. Because in a way, he wants to like please his father, but also sort of like realizes he's sort of like shackled to this world by his father. Anyway, he does wind up killing him in it. It's hard for me to remember now. But it's sort of like a sort of rite of passage, a sort of transformation he goes through. It's funny. I was saying about how I'm pretty sure the novel Drive tells events out of sequence, jumps around a little bit, and this film just goes in a straight line, in a linear fashion there. So I was going to say that actually, and it's that apparently that's how he shoots too. He shoots in chronological order. Like usually movies are shot in whatever order kind of logistically makes the most sense for them to shoot. But if you're watching his movies are pretty much shot scene by scene the way we see them, because that's how he prefers to do it. But I had read that John Cassavetes had done it on in his films, so I thought that's a pretty cool approach. After I did it in my first movie, I felt, how can you do a movie any other way? It's like a painting. You paint the movie as you go along, and I like the uncertainty of not knowing exactly how it's going to turn out.
It definitely probably works better for the actors because...
I think so. I've always thought, that's something I've always thought about too. Like when they, shoot films the other way, how sometimes that must be kind of challenging for the actors.
I mean, it's understandable, especially if you have lots of different locations.
Mm-hmm.
You've got to do all this location at, one time, for the sake of the budget and, stuff like that. But, films like this, it's shot in a car and in an apartment building, it's pretty much it.
Yeah.
Easy stuff to do.
Yeah, I always thought that would be difficult to be an actor. And you have to like maybe give like the most like dramatic climactic performance right at the beginning. And then like do the other scenes later, like instead of work your way up to it, like the way it actually works in the movie, where you've got scenes of this or that, and then as the plot builds, things get more serious, whatever it is, and then maybe you have your big climax, the character maxing out their emotion and stuff like that. And yet, so many of the movies that we see, like that might have been one of the very first scenes they shot, and then it was like the lesser stuff they did later. I mean, it's the job. That's what you do. But I always think it might, like you said, I think it would probably help the actors to just be able to do it in the sort of proper order because I don't know. I just think emotionally you'd be able to, go level by level type thing.
You're an actor. Act, damn it. Act like this is the first scene in the movie.
Yeah. Sometimes we do take that for granted. Acting isn't easy. Yeah. I mean, there's a certain kind of acting that's easy. If you want to do like most sitcoms and stuff, not all sitcoms, because some do. It is sort of what people say. It's just sort of, Just do the same thing over and over again for consistency and stand in the right place. And that's kind of true. But yeah, well, acting's, one of those things. It's a craft. It can be very simple or very complicated. It all depends upon the actor or the role, et cetera, et cetera. So I don't like people that go too much about the craft of acting. Although, yes, it is a craft. It is art. I'm not trying to take any of that out. And as I said, we do sort of sometimes take these actors for granted, because I'm not saying, oh, yeah, they earn their money. Well, that's the whole thing. It's the same thing with like millionaire athletes. It's like, they're still playing a sport. They work really hard, but they're still playing a sport. But if they generate revenue, then obviously they're entitled to a certain amount of it. So that's why they're millionaires. That's how the world works, not taking it away. But still, acting is a pretty good gig if you can, get it going.
Sure.
But getting it going, that's the secret. Because as we said before, we talked about acting, I've seen plays here in the city I live with actors that I know are just everybody's as talented as some like A-list Hollywood actor. They have, maybe some of them are probably even better than some of these actors, but
sure.
It's about breaks and it's about looks and timing and stuff. And like a lot of theatrical acting is much harder than movie acting, but it doesn't pay that the same,
Natural
That's
talent.
why I really that's why I really respect the actors that have, and this happens. It's more in the British school than the American, but we see it too in American too, where you have actors that, although they do big movies, they're also very active doing roles in theater and stuff, which to me really shows they're the real deal. They're not somebody that just comes to set one day and does like one scene and then doesn't have to worry about it for a few days, comes back, does one scene again. Like doing a whole play is friggin' hard. Like, I've been in plays with very small roles, and it, I never had an important part in a play. I always had very small roles in plays, and that was demanding enough for me. Like, I had barely anything to remember, and I have a good memory. I'm really good at memorizing, but the whole thing is, it's not just memorizing it, it's getting it out there when you're supposed to in front of the audience and not fucking it up. You can have only a few lines, and still it's just a nightmare, because if you miss, it's ruined. You can't miss.
Sure.
Whereas in this, it's like, okay, we'll go again. For theater, it's the same thing. You rehearse. That's why you have rehearsals. Nobody can do it 100% the first time without any practice, but still. But, yeah, as we said, the acting in this movie, there's nothing that really stands out about it, but the main thing you would key on is the driver's performance, because it's one of those roles that doesn't have much dialogue, so he has to convey a certain amount of emotion, etc., without words, which he mostly succeeds at. The other characters are just good enough for what they are. As we said, the bad guys stand out probably the most. Albert Brooks and what's his name? Oh boy. I don't know why I'm blanking on his name, but we all know who I mean.
Bryan Cranston?
No.
Ron Perlman?
The Jewish guy. Ron Perlman, yes. Yeah. I don't know. Bryan Cranston's obviously a very good actor, but yeah, I just feel like he's in this movie. It's more of a timing issue. It's like, oh, he's a big deal right now. He had that sort of 3 to 4 year window where it was just like that. This happens with a lot of TV actors. They hit the height of like whatever, and then there's sort of a 3 to 4 year window where they show up in a bunch of movies, and most of them don't actually stay. Like, why is he in Godzilla? Well, it came out in 2014, so there he is.
Well, yeah, it's almost like the Godzilla movie, the recent Godzilla film. I mean, he was in it for like 15 minutes, maybe.
Mm-hmm. Here's something that interests me about Refn, is that he was initially offered the Bond film Spectre, and he turned it down. And if ever was a movie that like let me down, it was Spectre. Like, I was already sort of lukewarm on those Bond films with Craig and stuff, but Spectre just seemed like such a good plot, and it wasn't bad, but I was really disappointed by it. Anyway, I guess maybe he's the source on that is him, so I don't know. But he says that in July 2016, he said he turned down the offer to direct
I wouldn't be surprised.
Yeah.
And I don't blame him for turning it down either.
There's not too many Bond films that are that are directed by a non-Brit, are there? I mean, that's one of the things they like to keep things just as British behind the camera as in front of the camera, really, in those movies, which I respect. I'm fine with. And obviously, there's still exceptions. They still bring in people in there because it's not all within England. We need people from different nationalities and stuff. But I think like 90% of the I need to look that up now. I need to find out what Bonds are directed by non-British people.
I saw just a little snippet the other day. It said like 90% of the women that Bond had sex with tried to kill him in the movies.
Yeah, pretty much.
Pretty high number. I think I'd kind of be weary.
Right. Which again, like evens out some of that where people are so quick to point him out as like this big womanizer, like who's like mistreating women and using them and stuff. Like, well, he's using them, but they're also ready to not just use him, but even kill him. So I think it sort of evens out in a way.
Yeah. It's probably 100% that want to kill him, but they just get mesmerized.
Mm-hmm.
They give up on their plan.
Martin Campbell was the director of Goldeneye, and he's from New Zealand.
Ah.
And then he came back to direct Casino Royale. So he's really high in my books. He's directed two of the best, in my opinion. Goldeneye and Casino Royale are two of my very favorites. And he directed The Mask of Zorro, which I love. But he also directed Green Lantern, which is awful. But he's not British, technically. He's from New Zealand.
This is the original Casino Royale?
No, I like the Craig one, the 2006 one.
Okay.
I think it's really good. I'm not a big fan of the other Craig movies, but I really like that one.
Is that the one you're talking about, though? That he directed that?
Yes.
The New Zealand guy?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. But I think he's like the first non-Brit to direct Bond, unless there's a big hole there that I'm not thinking of. Anyway, it's not a big deal. It's something that can be worked out later. This show doesn't depend upon that.
I'm not a big Bond guy myself.
Yeah, I guess I am. I don't even really know why. I think it's just because there's so many of them. It's important to me to order them.
the OCD nature.
Yeah, very much so.
We must watch them all and place them in some sort of list.
And there are so many of them that, like, to me, like, the quality is amazing. They run from really good to fucking awful, like, which is, because there's so many of them.
Timothy Dalton error? Is that what you're talking about?
He's the only Bond that didn't make a bad one. Of course, he only made two, so he had that. I think the Timothy Dalton era is the most underrated.
I did like quite a few of the Pierce Brosnan Bond films.
I thought he alternated between good and bad. I thought Goldeneye was great. I thought
Tomorrow Never Dies?
Tomorrow Never Dies was average. I thought The World's Not Enough is actually somewhat underrated, although it's not great. And then one of the worst of all time is Die Another Day.
Oh, Die Another Day.
That might even be the absolute worst, I think, to me. I think that's the worst.
Is that the one Halle Berry's in?
Yep. And at the time, they were going to give her own spin-off and everything. That character.
What was her name? Like Voluptuous Titties or...
No, something really stupid like Jinx.
It's Jinx, yeah, that's it. They love being punny with the names.
Yeah, well, they backed off a little bit in newer times.
Your name is Saucy Vagina.
Although, of course, in The World's Not Enough, you've got probably the dumbest nuclear scientist or whoever she has ever played by.
Oh gosh, Denise Richards.
Richards, and her last name is Christmas. So then, like at the end, they put in like 5 Christmas puns at the end. It's like, I thought Christmas only comes once a year. So.
That is a good pun. That's a good one.
Yeah. Well, actually, that has one of my favorite Bond one-liners in it. In that, like, it's a more serious one, and I think it's good writing. It's the part where he kills the French. One of I think one of the hottest Bond girls. The other Bond girl in the movie, the one who turns out to be the bad guy. I think it's a French actress. Can't remember her name. But anyway,
Die Another Day?
No, not Die Another Day. In The World's Not Enough.
Oh.
In The World's Not Enough. Because, like, the thing was she totally succumbed to... Like, he was supposed to be protecting her, but he found out, like, she succumbed to Stockholm Syndrome and was in love with the bad guy and stuff, and she was fucking people over and stuff like that. And she had, like, this button. Basically, if she pressed it, the bad guy would, like, launch a nuke from the sub or something like that. And so Bond is, like, pointing the gun at her. And she's like, ha, you wouldn't shoot me. You'd miss me. And he shoots her dead because he asked him. He says, I never miss. which I think is actually a really poignant, good line because it's deep. It's not just I never miss, but it's also like I'm Bond. I don't get attached type thing. I always thought that was a really good line.
Sophie Marceau.
Sophie Marceau, yeah, one of my favorites. But yeah, I'd say that's one of the more underrated Bond films. But even though, like I said, I'm not one of those people. Like a lot of people, like my mother, absolutely hates Craig as Bond. She hates it. She's like, he is not Bond. Like I'll defend a tiny bit, not much. I'll defend with a little bit of enthusiasm, not much. But like no, like I'm super disappointed he's going to be in another one. I just wanted it to be over. I thought, okay, it's done. We can move on, have a new Bond. Like I thought he wasn't terrible. I thought he was fine, but it's over, and now he's signed on to the next one, which I find really disappointing.
Didn't he say he wasn't going to do it? I thought he said he wasn't.
At one point, he said he'd rather slash his wrists than do another one. See, this is what it's like to be like an A-list actor that makes $1 zillion.
A-list, well, yeah.
Well, Bond is A-list, no matter what you say, even if he has nothing else. And that's probably the main reason it's going back, right? Because like, what other great movies was he in? Like Daniel Craig in, you know.
I don't like Daniel. I mean, I don't like him in anything.
Yeah,
especially the Bond movies. What has he done? I'm trying to think of another movie he's done.
He did that one about like Jews hiding in the woods from the Nazis that I thought was okay. Defiance. He's in that. It's fine. You know, it's not amazing.
Was he an Enemy at the Gates?
If he was, it was before I knew who the hell he was.
Okay.
If he was, it must have been a smaller role. He was in Infamous. You know, not Capote, but the movie that came out at the exact same time as Capote and was almost the same thing. He was one of the killers in Infamous. And the main difference between Capote and Infamous is they really sort of push the myth that that the killer that Capote talked to more, that like they started to have like kind of a romantic bond. They pushed that, and Craig plays it in that. There's not really any hard evidence for that, but you know, people love to talk.
Sure. He was in
Sophie Marceau is 50 years old now. Still very pretty.
Road to Perdition. He was like the other.
Oh yeah, he was the gangster's son.
Yeah.
He was the gangster's son.
Oh, okay.
He's like the main problem in the movie, is because he's the one that's going to like kill him and his son. Yeah, he's a very callow guy. You know, very similar to like the Russian guy's son in John Wick. You know, one of those characters. It's like, oh, my dad's a big deal, and I'm just an asshole. I really love Road to Perdition, but I don't give him any credit for that. He's not that important. That's all Tom Hanks and the assassin is Jude Law.
Jude Law, okay. I was trying to figure out who it was. He's not listed first here.
I'm a big fan of Road to Perdition. To me, that's like a great example of a graphic novel adapted properly. Like the movie is very close to the graphic novel, and it has a really great look, has a really great feel, and it's great. It was definitely a different role for Tom Hanks. Like we're so used to Tom Hanks' this character. It's like in this, Tom Hanks kills like 40 people.
Yeah, it was kind of in his. He took a few years off there, I think, and did this in the middle. After Castaway
success. What year was that? Was that like 2001-ish?
2.
Road to Perdition? 2002. Yeah, no, I like that movie very much.
We should do that on here. I don't think we've done any like straight gangster movies on here, especially from that era. Yeah,
I'd be happy to revisit Road to Perdition. It's got some stuff with the Chicago outfit and stuff, and it also can be, you know, one of those road trip movies because he's on the run with his son.
Yeah, not the most uplifting film in the world.
No,
the feel-good hit of the year.
Yeah. But Drive was made on a fairly modest budget. You can't call it low budget. It was $15 million. But that's, by today's standards, at least a modest budget.
Is it? That's an indie picture.
Yeah, so it's pretty close to low budget. Pretty close.
You know, they always throw that term indie out there.
Made almost $80 million. Wow. Which is funny, because by the way people talked about it, you thought it broke 100 probably.
No Oscar nods or anything there, was it?
No, it just I think it won some like film festival type awards. Accolades. Let's see. It was nominated for British Academy Film Awards. What is that? Is that BAFTA? Best editing. Oh, here we go. Yeah, Nicholas Refn won Best Director award at the Cannes Festival. But that's it.
That's pretty prestigious.
It had one Academy Award nomination, Best Sound Editing, which it didn't win. So nothing that big. But yeah, I would imagine Best Director at the Cannes Festival is a pretty big deal.
What trying to think of what was big in 2011. Like what won that year?
Normally I'm so good at this, but I'm kind of blanking to tell you the truth. Hold on.
True Grit. King's Speech.
King's Speech. Yeah, that was the darling.
Yeah.
That's
not a good. Don't like it.
I mean, I'm all for dramas like that. I just never really been in the mood to watch it.
The Fighter, Black Swan, Inception.
Inception is the other big one. Okay. Yes,
Social Network.
Yeah, plenty of big ones. Yeah, a lot going on.
King's Speech won Best Director. What was Best Picture? King's Speech. Okay, wow.
King's Speech again, I think. Yeah.
Yeah. Natalie Portman got Best Actress for Black Swan.
I know she put a ton of effort into the role, so I don't have any problem with that, even though you've heard me criticize Black Swan. I'm not going to criticize her.
Yeah. I'd like to watch Black Swan again. I haven't seen it since... It was one of my favorites of that year just because I hadn't seen a lot of the stuff, like...
That's weird. I've got Drive as my own personally, it's my highest ranked movie of 2011.
Oh, let me go look at mine.
But I think it's a little... No, this can't be right. This is messed up. This isn't right.
I like The Fighter, too. Mark Wahlberg playing himself.
That's the same year as Warrior, which also had Tom Hardy as a fighter and Joel Edgerton.
That's what Tom Hardy did after Bronson.
Yeah, it shouldn't be number one, because my number one is The Raid.
Oh, yeah. See, foreign films can't count on that, because I don't get to see it until years after the fact.
But speaking of Daniel Craig, I remember now, he's in the remake of The Girl with the Dragon Tattoo.
Oh, gosh, yes. Haven't seen it.
He's not nearly as good. He's not nearly as good.
I'm not going to watch it.
As I think, isn't it like Stellan Skarsgård or somebody in the original? Tree of Life is another one of my favorites. My Flickshark's all messed up. It's telling me I don't even have some of these movies. Anyway.
Another Earth was a good one that came out that year.
Haven't seen that.
I liked it. It's Captain America, the First Avenger. Rise of the Planet of the Apes.
Yeah, I really like the Cap movies. They're my favorite Marvel movies. They're the Cap ones.
Yeah, mine too.
They're all pretty good.
Tyrannosaur? That was a really good movie. I don't know if you've seen that one.
I've heard that. You might have even been the one who told me, but I haven't seen it yet.
It's possible. The Snowtown Murders? That was 2011 too.
Months ago, somebody asked us to do that.
Really?
On this show. Yeah.
Oh, okay.
It's on the comments of one of our older videos. I can't remember which one. Somebody asked us to do that, so I wouldn't mind watching it. It's been a few years since I've seen it. It's a really intense movie, really well cast. I don't know where they found such genuine people. Like, they look like they were taken right out of those neighborhoods. So I give the movie a lot of credit for that. Like, if you live over here and you don't know much about Australia, it's like, does Australia also have like violent white trash? Oh God, yes they do. Here they are.
They're just not as heavily armed.
Yeah. I mean, it is an interesting case, of course, the Snowtown Murders. As I think I pointed out before, it's not exactly. It kind of like holds like the unofficial record of like the most people like being aware of serial killing going on. Like you had these guys that were doing it, and then there was their whole like social circle more or less knew, and like just nobody told the cops for ages and ages. Like at one point there was like 25, 30 people, maybe more, that like all knew exactly what was going on. They're like, oh yeah, they kill those people. So I wouldn't mind watching it again. It's been a while. Little cat.
Take Shelter is another one of my favorites from that year.
Still haven't seen that either.
Jeff Nichols, I always try to give him a shout out. I love his stuff. He did Midnight Special is his most recent film, which I'm not that big of a fan of, but I like all of his other stuff.
That would be something worth doing because I've seen like none of his stuff, and I mean none. Oh wait, I saw Mud. I saw Mud.
What'd you think of Mud?
I liked it. It was another one of those ones that was talked up a little too much for me.
Okay.
Like I had somebody that really, really liked it. I liked it though for sure. It was a bit predictable. You kind of knew exactly what was going to happen, but it was still enjoyable. Matthew McConaughey is a good actor when he wants to be.
I was going to suggest that you watch Mud. You'd probably like it, but
no, that's the only one I've seen because I remember once you had mentioned Shotgun Stories to me.
Mm-hmm. That's a really gritty, low-budget film, but I like it a lot.
But yeah, Mud is the only one I've seen by him. So
that's probably his most, critically acclaimed.
He's doing a remake of a film called Alien Nation. Sure.
Alien Nation?
Hard to find. I don't even know if there wasn't Alien Nation at first was a comic.
Oh yeah,
it was a television series.
It's been movies and TV shows, yeah.
So this is supposed to be like a movie based on all of that. He's supposed to be doing that, although there's not really any information on it.
Actually, let's see.
Oh, there was even an Alien Nation film released in 1988.
Yeah, it's got Mandy Patinkin in it. There's the TV show right there.
Yeah, I knew it was a TV and a comic.
I'm a big fan of that.
Malibu Comics did that. That's funny.
Oh, really? I've never read any of the comics.
I've always had a big fascination with Malibu because it's the right time period. It's like late 80s, early 90s. And two, I just have a fascination with things that didn't last long. Things that like didn't work out. Like periods in a band's history when they had a member that was only there for a little while, stuff like that. And in comics and stuff, like when Batman was Jean-Paul Valley, when Spider-Man was Ben Reilly, things like that. Like things that were temporary. I don't know why. I always feel the need to like...
comic we had? It was about dinosaurs.
Which one?
Malibu. It was one of Malibu's.
Well, Malibu was a pretty big line at the time. It had a lot of stuff. It probably had a dinosaur comic.
Dinosaurs for Hire.
There you go. It eventually got bought by Marvel and stuff, but it had some like really weird stuff that I like the Ultraverse. Like I want to get that had like Rune. I really want to get Rune, which is like some weird vampire alien. Lord Pumpkin. Just some really interesting weird characters. Some of which were somewhat crossed over into the Marvel universe at various points, but I never really saw any of that.
They were extremely popular.
Oh yeah, there you go. Dinosaurs for Hire, yeah.
Extremely popular for a short period of time.
Yeah, they were like the first to use digital coloring, I think.
Really? Okay.
Was one of their things. Digital coloring was just coming out, and they were the first people to always use it. Malibu. And they even had some like video games in the early 90s called Malibu Interactive that I read about but never played.
Airman.
But, it's been defunct since 94.
Dead Clown. I know I read some of these. I just can't remember.
But as far as I'm pretty sure there are like no collections. Like you can't go to like a comic store and get like, a trade paperback of Rune or something like that. And that's what I want.
Yeah, me too.
But I don't think those exist.
Rune, it was Rune versus Venom at one point.
Yeah.
That sounds cool.
Yeah. I know that Rune did a guest spot against Conan, but that's not... Oh yeah, Rune versus Venom, there you go.
And now I got to track down these Alien Nation comics.
Yeah. Alien Nation.
But yeah, James Caan, speaking of James Caan, he's in that Alien Nation movie, the original.
Oh, that's cool.
That's a really good movie. You need to check it out. It's,
okay. Yeah, I've never read or watched any of this stuff. I just know that there was a movie, there was a TV show, there were comics. I don't even know any of it. It was just a franchise that I was aware of.
well, James Caan, Mandy Patinkin, Terrence Stamp, Peter Jason.
Oh,
Pretty
cool.
pretty great cast in there. This is back when Mandy Patinkin was a cunt after the Princess Bride.
Right.
Remember, he
Described
was
as a buddy cop neo noir science fiction action film.
That's a hell of a description.
That sounds like can't miss to me. Yeah, I'm gonna have to track that down. It sounds pretty cool.
And then after the show ended, they continued making made for TV movies with the same cast from the show.
That's good. I mean,
and they're all pretty good too. It's all pretty solid. Of course, the newer stuff is probably the worst, just because the budgets were smaller. It was like sci-fi channel made for TV stuff.
Yeah,
that's never a good combination.
No, I've never actually seen or read any of it, so it's kind of interesting. Something to look into. I mean, there's novels too.
Wow. 5 sets of Alienation TV comic books, 20 comics. I may have to make a bid on this.
And there's 8 novels in the 90s. Which reminds me of they're probably worth some money now. It's funny. It's another one of those things where it's just like, if only you knew at the time. Because I have like a very clear memory of like being in like not a bookstore or anything, like being like it was too long ago to be Walmart. It was whatever the hell used to be Walmart in my town, and in a book section there, and they had like a young adult series based on Friday the 13th. Like, I bet you those books are probably worth something now. I can remember standing there like reading them like when I was a kid, being somewhat fascinated. They were weird because like Jason isn't in it. It's more like, I think it's like the mask like possesses people or some bullshit.
Oh wow!
Like if you pick up the mask, like you start killing people like Jason does or something. But I have to assume that those books are long out of print and probably might be for something.
I'm sure they are.
Yeah. Because I mean, there's novelizations. These aren't novelizations. These are like young adult novels that are just spin-off material. There's only 4 of them. Yeah, stories focused on different people finding Jason's mask and becoming possessed by his spirit. But the actual character did not appear in the novels. Let's see. Mother's Day, Jason's Curse, The Carnival, and Road Trip. I remember reading like I just skipped to like the last few pages of Jason's Curse. I can remember doing that. It ended with somebody like trying to bury the mask. But yeah, there's only 4 of them. I'll go look them up sometime. They're probably worth a little bit.
I saw the other day they're doing Kong versus the Planet of the Apes or something like that.
I guess you could put Kong in the Planet of the Apes world. It makes a certain amount of sense.
Yeah, let me see who's putting that out.
There's already apes, so why not one big one?
Nah, someone's actually doing it. I'm not sure what company it is, though. I saw it a few months ago.
Yeah.
See, that's what you need to do with instead of doing remakes and all this bullshit. You need to do multiverses.
I mean, multiverses are complicated things. People are already complaining about them, but I just mean it's just because it's a little harder to do film-wise, but you can do them. You just have to do them with care.
But at least it's something new. I mean, that's my...
Yeah, sure. Absolutely.
That's my issue with the other stuff. I just, I don't want to see your take on something somebody else has already done.
There's too much of that already.
Yeah, exactly. That's pretty much all there is now. I mean, like, think of the new properties that have come out in the past year, theatrically.
Remakes?
I mean, something that's not based on a book or a graphic novel
Oh.
or a sequel or a remake.
Yeah, that's hard. It's hard to even pitch that anymore, right? You're like, well, who cares? Like, everybody wants a built-in audience. Never mind like winning over a crowd by offering something new. It's like we want a built-in audience. We want people that already are familiar with some version of this or something. It's like, yeah, I would remember a movie was a movie.
I mean, like, It Follows. I know it was a few years ago, but, It Follows would be a good example.
It was a good movie. I liked it very much.
Just different, something different, That's, I guess, what we're lacking.
Mm-hmm.
And, like, Get Out. I like Get Out a lot.
Yeah. Which is why, like, last week when we were talking about Richard Stanley, we kind of felt like he was a guy that could maybe come up with those sorts of films like he did early on, and it seems it's too bad that he's not doing them anymore, because we thought he might be the type of guy that could do those types of things.
It's not something that hasn't been said 1,000 times before. It's just it seems like it's getting worse.
Yeah, I mean, some of the stuff I'm sort of on the fence on. Like, a movie I liked even more than It Follows was the year later they did The Witch, and The Witch was by Robert Eggers. And apparently, although I can't find anything like that confirms it for sure, Robert Eggers' next film was supposed to be a remake of Nosferatu, which sounds kind of pointless. And there already is a decent remake. The 1979 Werner Herzog remake is actually quite good. But part of me feels like, well, if anybody can do it right, this guy can. But at the same time, it's like, just get back to original ideas.
I just feel like these like really talented guys are getting bogged down with that stuff,
Mm-hmm.
Like, because I would imagine the studio is going to be, want to put their 2 cents into something like that. It's like he was a big production designer. That's where he got his start.
Yeah.
Art director. Brothers. So I don't see him attached to that anymore.
No. He was then trying to do some TV series. I don't know. So I don't know what's going on with that. I'm pretty sure that remake is still happening, with or without him. I think that is a thing that's going to happen.
Why, though? Why? Like, I mean, everyone that grew up with that movie is long since dead. I mean, I like it, but, your modern audience is not even going to know that name. Right?
I get the concept of making a silent film, because that's something that really could benefit
from a remake. Make it silent? Oh, hell no.
Oh, no, that it was a silent. I mean, that they're remaking a film that was originally silent. Like, that's one of the times where I'm like, well, yeah, that is kind of obvious. Like, because a lot of films, it's like, oh, it doesn't need an update. I do kind of think, sure, why not an update? But like I said, it already exists. They did it in 1979. Well, if you want to see Nosferatu with sound and color, there's a 1979 version that's quite good.
I mean, like 90% of vampire movies are already trying to rip that film off. So,
even if the audiences don't know it,
exactly, and they won't know it, because for one thing, they're not going to watch a black and white movie. They're not going to watch a silent movie. I did like the what's the one they made about the movie? Shit, I can't even think of who stars in it. Was Willem Dafoe starring it?
Oh yeah, Shadow of the Vampire. Yeah,
Shadow of the Vampire.
That's fictional telling of doing it, where like the actor Max Schreck really is a vampire or something. It's an amusing movie. I enjoy it.
I mean, see, that's a unique take on that story. I think
Yeah, sure.
Instead of just redoing it.
Yeah, that's a cool movie.
We'll put some explosions in there. Ryan Gosling will play the...
Make it all sexy. It has to be really sexy, even though that's one of the things I always respect about Nosferatu. Because there's 2 different vampires that split. There's the Dracula and there's the Nosferatu. Dracula goes the charming, sexy nobleman. Nosferatu is the weird rat-like thing. But the weirdest thing is the one element that came from Nosferatu that's used again and again, and most people don't even know came from Nosferatu, is the sunlight killing him thing. That's not in Dracula, and it's not in any other like big known vampire thing. That's the end of Nosferatu. The sunlight kills him, and yet that was the thing. Like they ignored most vampire stories ignore most of the Nosferatu stuff they take from Dracula, but they use the sunlight thing. Because in Dracula, it was always implied that he could walk around just fine in the daytime. His powers came to be at night. But there's so much vampire fiction out there where it's like they're barbecued in the sunlight, and that comes from Nosferatu. Because that's how Nosferatu ends. Which I always think is funny, because I think most people don't even know that that's where it comes from, because most people don't even know Nosferatu. Or if they do, they're just like, oh, that's weird. He's like got claws.
They know the shadow on the wall with the claws. That's what they know.
Yeah. And, very enduring image for sure.
A typo negative music video.
Yeah. And there's that.
No, we're gonna remake Nosferatu, and he's gonna have wicked abs in this one.
Yeah, let's see it.
Have a wicked set of abs.
That's just required. Hard to get taken seriously as an actor if you don't have it.
Oh man.
But getting back to Drive for a little bit, so when he finally, for the end of the movie, the climax, when he goes on the offensive to take the fight to the gangsters so he can take this out, and he prepares for the mission, why he goes back to the movie place and takes one of the masks, and I have no idea why. Why does he wear the mask? The bad guys know who he is.
Yeah.
He's not disguised in any other way. They know, and he's killing them anyway. So it's not like he needs anonymity. It's like he puts on the mask, and I've never understood it. No one could ever give me a good answer. Like, there must be some symbolism there, I guess. But he puts on that weird, generic Michael Myers-esque kind of mask, and that's what he does the killing with, and where he finally kills what's his name in the ocean after he runs them off the road.
It made sense to me that he put it on to go peer in the window to look at what's his name, Nobi. Ron Perlman's character.
Oh, yeah.
Whatever his name is. But he peers in the window to look at him. And that makes sense, because they're like, oh, there's a weird bald white dude looking in here. That's not the guy we're looking for. But yeah, he wears it when he drives them off the cliff. I agree.
Yeah. It doesn't ruin the movie for me or anything. I just never understood it. And I've asked people, and they've never
I'm sure you could draw some psychological bullshit on it, but
yeah, sure.
He did it, so
like he had to transform himself. It's like he's someone else if he's going to do this, even though he's already brutally killed people without a mask. So it's not like he needs to put on the mask to get himself violent. He's already shown he's capable of great violence without the mask. But I always thought that was just an odd thing. Like at the time when I was watching, I was like, "Oh, this has a purpose," and then it's like, "Well, I can't really figure it out." But there's a lot of blue and orange in the movie, which I appreciate because I think they're used just because they clash so much. And I think it probably has to do with the fact that Lyndon Griffin is colorblind. He's not colorblind in that he can't see colors, but he's one of those people where mid-range colors, he can't differentiate between them.
I didn't know that.
Speaking of color, I was reading about this blog not too long ago. This person that did like a color survey where like people have to like identify colors, but there's like hundreds of them. Mm-hmm. And eventually people just go insane trying to do it. And he's showing like the results of like what people are writing in. And he's like, one person 255 times just wrote the same racial slur. But other ones, like people are like, you can see they're taking it seriously. For dozens and dozens, they're trying their best to identify the colors. Then eventually they're just like writing about how like they think they're dying or like they don't know what colors are anymore. Things like that. Maybe I can send it to you. It's really funny though. It's just like somebody just wanted to do like the survey and how people like identify and respond to color, but it's really intense and you have to like stick with it. And like most of it is just like sort of a psychological study of how quickly people can go insane if they have to keep identifying colors. There's a lot of really funny stuff in it. But yeah, he himself is actually colorblind to that extent, so I think that's one of the reasons why he feels the need to use sort of intense colors, because middling colors blend together for him and he can't separate them. I think my mom does too. My mom always uses me to like identify colors for her when she's like doing patterns and stuff like that, or because she seems to have trouble differentiating between like a dark blue and a black and things like that.
Well, it's like, do you remember that it was a picture going around maybe a year or two ago about a dress? And some people were saying it was like white and black. Other people were saying it was blue and something.
Yeah, I remember that.
I could see both, but I don't remember which one I was. There really is no right or wrong answer.
Yeah. But besides the mask, there are several things about the movie that logistically you can pick apart, which is why we like to stress that like it's really more, even though it's a pretty good story with pretty good characters, you can accept some of those holes and flaws because it's more of the stylistic approach and presentation and stuff. I mean, when you think about it, it doesn't really make very much sense when you have a getaway driver working in that kind of profession, which depends upon anonymity. He'd always wear like the same very highly identifiable jacket, so that exactly what happened to him in the diner could happen. Somebody could just walk up and be like, "Hey, I know you. You're that driver," and stuff.
Yeah, I guess he doesn't mind wearing it, just as long as he doesn't wear it while he's doing his.
I mean, at the end of the first
driving.
chase, remember how like it's a really brilliant scene, and to people that haven't seen the movie, it has a really great opening scene where he does a getaway for these guys, and it's at nighttime. And I think it really subverts most audience expectations because it's not just him getting on the road with the cops chasing him and him doing a bunch of awesome moves. A lot of it is him knowing how to hide the car, like going into the alley at the right time, turning off the lights at the right time. And it ends with them, spoilers, what is it? It's the end of like some sporting event, and he drives into a parking lot, the parking lot area, just as the game is letting out. And that's what he's doing. He's listening to the radio to when the game's going to end so he can time it, so that they can blend in with everybody getting in their cars just leaving the game. And he actually puts on another jacket over the jacket and a baseball hat just so that he would blend into the crowd better, because obviously if you're wearing something like that, it's very identifiable and conspicuous. So this is one of those things where you might say the director or whatever is deferring to the rule of cool, where it's just like, well, yeah, but it's cool. So we'll keep it in. So there's a bit of that going on in this movie. Because style is just so important. It's just such an important element of the movie, and I would not say change it. I'd say, yeah, I accept it for the way it's done. I really like it. I really respond to it. But there are certain people that like to pull things apart and stuff, where you just have to say, okay, well, stylistic choice, etc. And maybe there's somebody who's watching this can even explain that mask to me and explain how that fits in stylistically or something. Because honestly, I don't really know what it's about. I don't mind it. It doesn't take me out of the movie.
Yeah, but, I totally agree with you on that. It's almost like they were just trying to give a callback to when he wore it in the movie. While he was making the movie. I don't know. I don't really know what purpose it serves when he's doing the actual killing, because the only people there are the ones he's going to murder.
He's going to kill. They're not going to tell. There's no witnesses.
Right. I mean, maybe in case there are witnesses, maybe.
And you have to imagine that at least like the main characters, like the ones he's going after, like Nino, they know who it is. Mm-hmm. Maybe the mooks, I don't know. But yeah, when I was talking about how this is obviously a neo-noir movie and stuff, but I thought like it sort of has like that glowy, dreamy feel to it too, and it reminds me a little bit of something like L.A. Confidential. That actually made this movie became a trope namer for a new thing called Sunshine Noir. Like Sunshine Noir came out of this movie, and you can totally see it because it has like those elements, but you get bright stuff, and even though it's not visual, the music sort of fits with that too. So it's a very unique movie, despite the fact that it uses a lot of elements from tons of movies we've seen. It still comes together into something fairly unique. And then now we've got Sunshine Noir, which pretty much came out of that. Although you could say the real origin of that is Chinatown, but I'd say this is a better example than Chinatown.
Yeah.
A movie that I haven't seen that gets prepared to this a lot. I think you or somebody said it's a pretty good movie. It's To Live and Die in L.A. Yeah, because you're talking about the Wang Chung soundtrack. I remember now. So now I really want to see To Live and Die in L.A. and see how maybe it stylistically matches up to this movie too.
It's really good. You can see it's some similar elements to The French Connection in there too.
Yeah, that's right. Because we were talking about William Friedkin. It's all coming back. 80 soundtrack by Wang Chung.
It's a great soundtrack.
Yeah,
Willem Dafoe was in that one as well, one of his early
yeah.
roles.
That's one we might cover in the future too. I'll try to remember because I'd be interested in seeing it because I've actually never seen it. Never, not even like a piece of it on TV or anything.
Unlike Heaven's Gate, he's actually credited in the film.
That's good.
I would imagine it was soon after. What year was that?
85. So actually longer than you think.
Yeah,
A few years.
a few years. Yeah, must have been doing something in between.
I love Willem Dafoe.
Yeah, I like it when he.
After watching Defoe's performance in The Last Temptation of Christ, Sergio Leone was heard to remark, "That's not the face of our Lord. It's the face of a psychopath."
Oh man.
But yeah, Heaven's Gate
Forgot
was
he
his
was in that.
film debut. And Willem Dafoe is actually in the Walter Hill film Streets of Fire, which I really enjoy, even though it's not nearly the success. It's not nearly the success of his other the other Walter Hill films I like so much. But I really still really respect Streets of Fire for what it tries to do. It tries a really unique, interesting thing. Willem Dafoe's great in that. He plays like some sort of like weird gang member that's like basically like an evil gang David Bowie. It's pretty cool.
Is that a musical?
It's not like yeah, like they try to like describe it like it's a musical. It's not. It's the same way they try to say that friggin' New York is a musical. It's not a musical. There's some music in it, but it's not a movie where people just break into song and music comes out of nowhere. But music is very important. Like rock and roll is like the main theme. So sometimes it's like referred to as like some sort of like action musical or something, but it's not technically a musical. But music is very important in it, and there's a couple scenes like where like there's a band playing or something like that. But there's no somebody just singing. It's not like that. It's a cool movie. You can see why it didn't do well, but I really like it.
Well, I listened to an interview with Walter Hill recently, where he was talking about that and how it wasn't very successful.
Yeah. Did you ever play one of the? I know there's so many beat 'em ups from that period, but did you ever play the Sega one, Streets of Rage?
Absolutely.
Streets of Rage basically lifted the whole visual from Streets of Fire, and then just gave itself a slightly different title.
Is that the one with Hagar? Hagar's like the.
No, that's Final Fight.
Final Fight. Okay, I'm getting them mixed up. I know.
When I was in Sydney, I could have bought a copy of Final Fight, like the Super Nintendo game, just the cartridge, no box or anything like that. But they wanted $50 for it or $40 for it. I was like, no. I was like, I want this, but not quite that much. But Streets of Rage was, the main reason I identified it was it wasn't on Super Nintendo. It was on Genesis, and it didn't have a bunch of sequels. At least as far as I know, it didn't. The city was once a happy, peaceful place, until one day a powerful secret criminal organization took over. This vicious syndicate soon had control of the government and even the police force. The city has become the center of violence and crime where no one is safe. Amid this turmoil, a group of determined young police officers are sworn to clean up the city. Among them are Adam Hunter, Axel Stone, and Blaze Fielding.
Yeah.
They are willing to risk anything, even their lives, on the Streets of Rage. I mean, I didn't even play it that much, but I barely remember. But yeah, the whole look and the way the characters look and everything is basically Streets of Fire, except there's no Rick Moranis.
Unfortunately. Wow.
But Final Fight too. I think Final Fight is also very close. I would say of the two, Streets of Rage more so, but Final Fight absolutely, and that is the one you were thinking of. I really like
Which one? Which is the one where at the very end you have to fight like your brother or your buddy for the girl?
They might have done that in one of the Final Fights.
Yeah, it was so weird. It's like now we're gonna fight each other.
Yeah, that sounds. I think that was probably one of. There's at least 3 or 4 Final Fights. That was probably one of them. Yeah, I really like Final Fight. I think it's the most underrated of the beat 'em ups. I mean, everybody talks about Double Dragon.
Oh, I love Final Fight more than Double Dragon.
So do I. And I like that the Final Fight characters, some of them are in the Street Fighter universe. Like, my best Street Fighter character is Guy from Final Fight. I'm really good with him. Yeah, Guy and Cody and... the Mad Gear Gang. Those are the bad guys. The Mad Gear Gang. They were an awesome gang.
Lost quite a few quarters to that game.
Yeah, I did play that one in an arcade a little bit. or maybe one of the sequels probably. Might have been Final Fight 2. I actually played in arcade. My arcade history is very sad because it's so brief.
We had the grocery store that my mom would go to. She'd go do her shopping and give me a 5 quarters or whatever, and let me play games while she went shopping. Final Fight was one that I played, and Bad Dudes. Do you remember Bad Dudes?
No, I don't even think I know the title, and usually I know the titles.
Yeah, it's really funny because it's like, are you a bad enough dude to handle this?
Yeah, awesome. So that's just another thing that's
you would
disappeared
recognize
from the world. Probably. But yeah. We used to have a bigger mall and a smaller mall. And the smaller mall used to have an arcade. And right up till I was almost like leaving high school, because I remember when I was in high school, when I had a free period, I could walk to that mall because it was like really close, and I would go to the arcades sometimes. And this was when arcades were totally dying. This would have been like 97, 98 and stuff. But I remember playing like Street Fighter Alpha 2 there.
Oh wow, yeah, that one's later on.
Yeah,
I don't think
no, I played some of the older stuff too, but not usually at home. A game I eventually got was Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles 2, the arcade game. I got that for Christmas after I had first played it in the little arcade in the hotel we stayed at when we went to Florida. That would have been in 1990. Like, it's funny. I was to Florida in 1990, and we did all sorts of things. Went to Disney World, and Epcot, and all those things. But it was my second time there, so maybe I was less impressed because, like, what I remember now, like, I remember like playing in that. I remember playing that game in the arcade almost as much as I remember other stuff that we did.
Totally, yeah.
Out of the hotel.
That was back when hotels had arcades. Oh man, so much fun. I mean, I miss arcades in general, like just because of I don't know, the nostalgia love. I guess
it's just another thing that died off. There's no drive-in. I mean, kids grow up. There's no drive-in. There's no arcades. There's no video rental store.
There's not going to be any movie theaters soon.
Yeah, like all the stuff you could do out in public, like.
Exactly. It's you sit in your house and play Call of Duty now.
Things are even less social now. I was not much of a social butterfly, but at least I was out.
Yeah, you had to. That was your choices.
I mean, I'm glad to live in an era where you can play like arcade quality stuff at home. That's great, but still, I would still go to an arcade if I could. Oh, here's a game that I played that I don't think many arcades had. I don't even think most people know, but it was a Capcom game. And it was actually a hack and slash game. It was called Magic Sword Heroic Fantasy. There was a Super Nintendo port, but I have no memory of that. But that was cool. It was like it was a fantasy, like hack and slash side scroller, like with like wizards and elves and stuff. And there were quite a few characters, including like a ninja, because even in a fantasy, everything has a ninja. But I remember playing that at the arcade. That was fun.
Magic Sword. Let's see.
Magic Sword, Heroic Fantasy. I can't even recall which arcade it was, but I remember playing it like on a recurring basis.
Those type games.
I think it was in the bowling alley. My bowling alley might have had the best arcade of all the arcades in my hometown. There weren't many, right? Most arcades were just three or four machines. Like that's how I used to play. Even well after it was like old. Like this would have been high school when they would have moved on to the alphas and stuff like that. But I still used to play a version of. Remember how they made Super Street Fighter 2 and they made Street Fighter 2 Turbo, but there was no home port of Super Street Fighter 2 Turbo, like the combination of both. There was for 3DO, but there wasn't for other things. But one of my pizza places had that. Like it was the only arcade game they had.
Yeah,
I would have bought it from them if I could have. But yeah, it was weird too because the arcade cabinet itself looked like it was entirely made of wood. It was like wood on all the sides.
Oh wow!
It was Super Street Fighter 2 Turbo, and I used to play it there at the pizza place.
Do you remember there was an Aerosmith shooting game? Do you remember that?
Yeah, it was called something Revolution.
Yes, that's it. Maybe Aerosmith Revolution.
Revolution X.
Ah,
it's called Revolution X, and like you shot CDs at people. One of those really ill-fated type games.
Yeah.
But yeah, I played that. I played that on like a school trip. I played that at an arcade in Quebec. And it was pretty crappy. I didn't even get out of the first level.
In Revolution X, there was Area 51
Yeah,
around the
that's
same period
that's
of
one I was
time.
pretty good at. I was pretty good at that one. Wasn't there a PlayStation 1 port of Area 51?
I'm sure there probably was.
I think I played that. But yeah, Revolution 1. Aerosmith has been kidnapped by stormtroopers on roller skates. Are you a bad enough dude to rescue Aerosmith? That's not the actual tagline. That's like a reviewer.
That would be great.
But yeah, that was a light gun game, and like all light gun games, it was hard as fuck.
Remember the Terminator game? It was almost the exact same setup, but
yeah, that's still in my arcade by the theater. My theater has like an arcade, which is really just a bunch of stuff that's not video games, but it has that game. It's still there, and it's loud as hell. You go into the lobby of my theater, and you just hear like dun 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 dun.
Oh yeah,
you just hear that like booming. Man, by the way, a bunch of shit happened to me yesterday, and I'm still kind of reeling from it. But yesterday, my original plan was, I don't know if it's around where you are, but Terminator 2 is being shown in 3D, and I was going to go see it last night, and then that totally fell through.
I don't think it is. I got to see if it is, though.
I might have another chance. I'm going to look up and see if it's happening anymore. But that was what I was going to do yesterday before the shit hit the fan on me. I was going to go, even though I had to go alone.
You haven't seen it yet, have you?
No, but that's my next movie I want to see. I'm hoping Brian will go see it. Yeah, yeah. I think there's sneak previews or whatever on. I think there's midnight showings on Thursday, but then actually opens Friday.
I was thinking
isn't that
last week?
I think Eric is going to go see it on Thursday. He said.
Oh, so he's going to see it opening night then.
Yeah, he's going to see it opening night. I think that must be a midnight show. Well, maybe not. Anyway, I'm going to try and see if Ryan can go. I know he's interested in the movie. We haven't seen a movie together in friggin' forever. So I'm going to see if he wants to go. Because I'll hold off on seeing it if I can see it with him. But either way, I'm going to see it. That's the next movie. That's for months. It's been the only movie I've cared about seeing. As I said, I still hold out hope. Just like you, I reread it. I know you're still reading it, right?
Yeah, I'm still working on it, man. It's a long ass book.
It's a long book, man. Yeah.
Is that one of King's longest? Just out of curiosity.
Absolutely, yeah.
Okay, good.
Yeah. I mean, I think it might be his second longest. I think only The Stand beats it, and that's only if you get the uncut version of The Stand, because there's a shorter version of The Stand.
I'm loving it so far.
Consequently, they're my two favorite. My favorite books by him in this order are The Stand, It, and Salem's Lot. They're my favorites. Those are the holy trinity for me. I like lots of other things and stuff too, but those are the ones I like the most.
See, I read lots of his short stories, when I was 11 years old. I never really got to the novels though, so yeah. I haven't really read a whole lot of his stuff.
Pretty much anything he wrote before, say, 1998, I can pretty much recommend as at least a pretty good read. It's not even I'm saying he got bad. I just lost track. A lot of the stuff he's written in the 21st century, I just have not read. The only thing I can even think of off the top of my head is Under the Dome, which was pretty good, but like a lot of things, I think he said it's he didn't know how to end it, so it has kind of a disappointing ending. But Under the Dome is not bad.
I know it sounds kind of stupid, but I'm it's kind of, I don't know, I guess it goes without saying, but I'm just shocked at how great of a writer he is. When I'm reading, I'm just God damn.
That's what happens when you're as popular as he is, though, right? People just think, oh, it's all just disposable, crap for the masses.
Mm-hmm.
He doesn't write well, but he writes really well when he wants to.
Mm-hmm. Oh, man, it's not even he's good for a horror writer. It's he's a legit good writer,
Yeah.
It's, people always want to.
Okay,
I guess that's what he struggled against his entire career is, he's, am I a hack horror writer like Bill is and it,
Yeah. That was one of the things I mentioned a few times because right before or after around the time I read it, I also bought different seasons. Mm-hmm. And that's one of the things he talks about in the afterword because none of them are horror stories. Because there were two problems with it. One, they were all they weren't novels and they weren't short stories. They were in that sort of no man's land, sort of novellas. And also they weren't horror movies. And it was only 1982 when he got it published, and he didn't have a huge reputation at the time. And he was talking to his agent about how his next book was going to be this or that, and he's just if you do that, you're going to be pegged as a horror writer. It's I'm going to do it anyway. And then he ran into that problem, and so some of those stories, those being Apt Pupil, The Body, Radio Hayworth and the Shawshank Redemption, and The Breathing Method. Some of them he had written like years earlier, but he just didn't know what to do with them. So then he got the idea of putting the 4 together in a collection to do it that way. And I think that's, especially if you want to appreciate him as a writer, it's a really great collection because there's no horror in it, really. And they're just really good stories anyway. Especially those 3 that have been made into the ones that people know, like The Breathing Method, you can take a leap. But the other 3 are just so strong. Like Apt Pupil just grabs you right from the beginning. It's so well done.
Yeah, I think that's what I'm going to go to next is that Seasons.
Yeah, for me, the window has closed on Terminator. Not playing tomorrow.
Strangely enough, I was looking and Close Encounters of the Third Kind is playing here.
Yeah, it's going to be here too. That's like an anniversary thing, isn't it?
Is it? Yeah, 30th.
Came out in 77.
Oh, 40th anniversary. Wow.
Hold on a second. I have something.
'40th anniversary. Wow.
I had some Close Encounters stuff. Here's the official authorized edition Close Encounters. Special collector's edition on Close Encounters. It's in really good shape, too. Nice little movie. And here's
Is that from 77? Or right around that period of time?
It should be because they're hailing it as a new film.
That's cool.
So yeah, really excellent stuff there.
Oh wow.
Let's see the opening. Yes, this is 77. And here's like an official book thing too. This is mostly just like photos. I like this one at the end. Big.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. I also have the novelization somewhere, and I have the soundtrack on record. So I have quite a bit of. It's one of the few movies I have like real like sort of memorabilia for. That is cool. Here, look at Richard Dreyfuss.
Whippersnapper.
So I will definitely see that soon too. So, written, directed by Steven Spielberg. 29-year-old Steven Spielberg is his first film since Jaws, an all-time box office champion. It's like he's just getting warmed up, people.
Exactly. Just wait. He's got a whole decade of good shit coming.
And there's a great thing at the end here too. It says, "Watch the skies," and it says, "There's no scientific evidence that UFOs do not exist. By seeing the motion picture Close Encounters of the Third Kind, you qualify to become a member of the CE3K Skywatchers Association." So there's this whole thing where you can like join some like group of UFO enthusiasts.
Is it you write in and join a mailing list or something?
Yeah. Let's see. Junior membership annual dues $3.50. Senior membership annual dues $5.
I'll be a senior.
Limited number of associate members are available at $2. So yeah, you fill out this little thing and send it in. I guess they'll put you on a thing. Dr. J. Allen Hynek, the world's leading authority on ufology, who I will now have to look up. That's pretty awesome.
That guy's probably been dead for 20 years.
Yeah. I actually do believe in aliens, but I don't think any have come to Earth yet. Because isn't it funny how like back around this time and stuff, like there were all these UFO sightings, but now that we live in a world where everybody has a camera phone and stuff, like it never happens anymore. And when's the last time you like heard anything about people like seeing some mysterious object? It doesn't happen now.
It happens all the time. The bad thing is there's a lot of fake shit out there. Like a lot of the stuff that was like some of the best footage we had is now being debunked. Like
yeah,
a lot of the stuff in Florida. Was it Clearwater, Florida, or?
Oh, I don't know. I hadn't heard of it. I don't think.
It was Ocean Breeze.
Okay.
Probably a lot of stuff in the 90s you may remember was, UFO stuff was still kind of big.
Yeah, it's still pretty big.
I've heard a lot of
the X-Files. The X-Files made people see them.
I really think that it's some sort of military, vehicle that we've seen.
Yeah, I mean, it explains some of those locations, like southwestern United States, right? Like where there's Air Force bases and stuff.
Yeah, it's just too many cases of somebody seeing something and then all of a sudden the military is there to scrub it out. But a lot of people were saying that what people were seeing was they were dumping nuclear waste. They were using UFOs to dump the nuclear waste that was made when they were, mass production of bombs in the 50s.
I can believe it. There's actually if you don't want to look into it because it's depressing, but there's a lot of nuclear waste stored in the U.S.
Absolutely.
And some of it's not stored nearly as well as you might think or hope.
Yeah.
Some of it, like there's like all sorts of footage, and they just openly admit to this of like dump in like the 60s, like dumping like barrels of it into the like ocean off the coast of New Jersey.
Yeah, but I mean, look at Japan. Japan's leaking, toxic, nuclear waste out like nobody's business right now.
Yeah.
And they're, not talking about it.
I never understood how they could embrace nuclear power after being the only country in history to actually get atomic bombs dropped on them.
Well, the city as big as Tokyo, you don't really have a choice, do you?
Yeah. So I imagine it probably is kind of a hot button issue over there. There probably are people that are strongly opposed to it.
Yeah.
But semi-related note, I've brought it up before. The film, The China Syndrome, is a really excellent film. It's a fictional thing about safety precautions at a nuclear plant in the States and a cover-up and stuff. It's pretty cool. And it came out like right in the wake of the 3 Mile Island incident, so it made it really topical and popular. That's one of my favorite 70s films.
I saw this. Michael Douglas, right?
Yeah, Michael Douglas.
Yeah,
he's not that important. He's like the camera guy.
Well, I guess Jane Fonda.
Jane Fonda and Jack Lemmon. Jack Lemmon's so good. It just hit me now. It hit me probably years, like way too late. That Jack Lemmon was just an outstanding actor. Like he's just so arresting in everything you see. Like he always steals the scene for me, Jack Lemmon.
Now he's only known for like Glengarry Glen Ross and like those grumpy old men movies.
Yeah, I mean he's fine in those. He's fine in those, but he's just done so much stuff.
Oh yeah.
And I always find him really attention grabbing. I think there's just some sort of earnest quality to his performance, just something that really grabs you. Like he's a really sort of intense type actor. I really like him.
Like some Like It Hot. He's great in that.
Yep, sure. Obviously, everybody knows the Odd Couple show.
Oh yeah.
Walter Matthau, and yeah, that's what Grumpy Old Men basically is. It's just reuniting them. They did 2 Grumpy Old Men movies and a movie called Out to Sea, which I have seen, although I don't remember very well.
I haven't seen a lot of that Odd Couple stuff.
The original show?
Yeah, the original.
It's good, but it's like a lot of those older sitcoms. Like it's fair to say about newer sitcoms too, and that it gets kind of repetitive.
Sure. The casual racism. You missed that. I missed the casual racism of television.
Yeah. We still have racism in television, but it's different. So we talk about being a more innocent time. Yeah, okay.
Yeah.
It's weird though, but I mean, sometimes there's a better earnestly to it though, like how you could watch something like All in the Family, which is early 70s, right? And like, it would be unthinkable to say like the N-word nigger or whatever on a TV show, but they weren't saying it because it's acceptable. They were just hitting it right head on. They were like, this is the word. This is people saying. It's like, how would you feel if this, and they're actually saying it. Like they were doing it for that reason. It's not like, it's the 70s. No one cared. Sure, people cared.
The same
people
thing
were
happened
probably
with Sanford and Son.
Yeah, and I just sort of respect that. I'm not saying, I wish that they would say the N-word nowadays, but I just mean it's not like they said it because it was more acceptable back then. They were like making an issue out of it. Yeah. They were, they were doing social commentary, and they weren't backing down from it, which I sort of respect. Because now it's like, even no matter what, nowadays if you pitch a scene that might have the word, and you're saying, well, contextually, that's the point. Like they're addressing it, like they're talking about it. It's just like, no, that cannot happen. And
I totally respect it, man. Because it gets people talking, conversation, and it's just a word, Let's discuss why this word is so hurtful. But no, it was great, man.
I know we talked about it before, but have you done any reading up on Confederate? Because this is man, people were flipping out over that. I guess it's still happening.
What, the stuff that happened
I mean,
a few months ago or a month ago?
No, that there's going to be a show on like Showtime or HBO or something.
Yeah.
And it's an alternate history, and like there's just been a huge backlash of people saying like we just don't want this show, just don't do it. The whole idea is offensive and terrible, and they keep talking about how like the American public like what is it, like fetishizes black suffering. It's part of their entertainment. Like I don't buy that, but that's the whole thing. But I'm just like the show hasn't come out yet. It's not like the show is going to show it's a good thing. I'm pretty sure the show is going to show how it's a bad thing, but.
Yeah. Well, it's on.
I mean, I get it though. I get it though. In some of it, it's like if you're a black actor, it's like, look, you can play a slave. It's like, okay, but I'd like to play other roles too. I mean, I get it to a certain extent, but at the same time, nobody's forcing anybody to play these roles.
Yeah,
I don't know. I just feel like you shouldn't. I just feel like we should not be judging a show before it's even gone into production, and that's what has happened.
I would imagine
all over Twitter, like
it's going to be very tastefully done, you know, and it's going to be, you know, portrayed as, you know, the bad guys.
Yeah, I mean, if they back down and like not do it, I don't see that as a win. To me, that's censorship. That's giving in to censorship.
Yeah, but I mean, I feel like it's a hot button issue. Let's discuss it. Not let's make it like it never existed.
Speculative fiction is a legitimate form of fiction. It's not something that just popped up out of nowhere. There's movies about like what if the Nazis won the war,
right,
and stuff like that.
I love that stuff.
This is the thing. Yeah, and yeah, you love it, and you don't love it because you think that would have been great if that was the real world.
Yeah.
No, you think, wow, there's lots of dramatic possibilities and good storytelling in this sort of setting, and I think that's what they're just doing, saying here. I mean, of course, the show should be uncomfortable because it's going to show people like in a modern sense, like us, except there's actually going to be black slaves integrated into the world. Of course, it's uncomfortable. That's the fucking point. It's not them saying, "Wouldn't that be great?" But anyway,
was HBO doing
that? Yeah, I think so.
That's gonna be tough, man. That's gonna be a tough sell. I mean,
as far as I know, it's still ongoing. And I don't know if stuff's died down, but like, yeah, about a month or two ago, it was trending all over Twitter and stuff. People like it was just called "No Confederate." That was the tag, because people just saying we don't want this. Like, don't give it. Like, it's just wrong. Don't even go there.
Have you heard about
I don't think that's right.
The whole trend going around where they don't even think you should be teaching history? Have you heard about that?
That's god awful.
You haven't heard about that? No,
what, like
schools are not teaching history anymore because it's racist.
Yeah, history had a lot of racist stuff. History had a lot of bad stuff.
I feel like
it's called history.
I feel like I'm treading something I've already said, but yeah, it's like it makes no sense to me.
Yeah, it's being developed by the same people that had developed Game of Thrones. That's sort of the thing. Confederate chronicles events leading to the Third American Civil War. It takes place in an alternate timeline where the southern states have successfully seceded from the Union, giving rise to a nation in which slavery remains legal and has evolved into a modern institution. The story follows a broad swath of characters on both sides of the Mason-Dixon demilitarized zone. Freedom fighters, slave hunters, politicians, abolitionists, I can't say the word, abolitionists, there we go, abolitionists, sorry, journalists, the executives of the slave-holding conglomerate, and the families of the people in their thrall. But upon announcement, backlash on Twitter, blah, blah, blah. Yeah, see, Oscars so... Yeah, the same people that created the whole Oscars so white thing created No Confederate. Oscars so white, I get. This, I don't.
I totally get it. And I mean, I get the backlash here too, but I just think it's kind of just on premise alone. You know,
defer judgment until the show airs. So as far as I know, it is going ahead, but that was the other thing after the... and here's somebody that says something in a statement in the New York Times. This is after Charlottesville. HBO has a long history of championing intelligent storytelling. We will approach this project with the same level of thoughtfulness that has always defined our programming. We recognize the sensitivity of this project and will treat it with the respect that it deserves. Our creative partners should be given time to develop the series rather than face prejudgment, which I'm all for. I'm not saying, like, I don't even know if I care about the show or if I watch it, but I just mean I believe in, not censoring stuff, especially not before it even happens. This is just people saying this is a terrible idea, don't do it, before it even happens. I mean, the show could come out and maybe, I doubt it, but it could do what you were all fearing, but I doubt it. I just don't agree with saying no to stuff before it even happens. Not like that. You don't.
If anything, maybe some really racist people will watch it and maybe change their opinions. I don't know.
Yeah. I mean, it could happen. Things like that do happen. But anyway, yeah. So
that's.
I guess it is still going forward, which is good because I don't think it's right to give in to that kind of pressure.
I'm going to say that I will watch it if it comes out, only because HBO has a pretty damn good track record for me.
Yeah. And it's not like there aren't black people involved with the project that have, they've stood up for it and said, we know what we're trying to do here. So, I think they're almost trying to make it out like this is just like some all white production and all the black actors will just be forced into it or something and stuff. Like, I think there's even black writers in this. And I don't know. I realize that's a slope because people can just say, well, just because black people are involved doesn't mean they speak for all black. Well, that's exactly the point. Nobody speaks for all group. Nobody. I don't speak for all white people. I don't speak for all Canadians. I don't speak for all Ukrainians. I don't speak for all Nova Scotians. That's just how it is. Anyway, we've wandered a lot.
Man. I don't really know what to say about it. It's kind of that we're to this point now where we can't even make a fictional TV show.
We're offended by the idea of something before it actually happens,
It's, I don't know.
There are offensive TV shows. There are offensive movies. And if you're offended by them, you have a legitimate grievance, fine. But you can't preemptively be offended by something and just shut it down. I don't think that's right. Not before having actually seen it.
Like, you remember when Archie Bunker...
People are just building something up in your head of what you think it's going to be, and you're reacting to that. But you don't know.
Remember when Archie Bunker and George Jefferson got together and talked about race? Like, that's the kind of shit we need on television right now because we're in a sad state of affairs with race relations in America, at least.
Yeah,
probably in the world, but
in the world, of course.
It's so sad that we've gone this many years and have made such little progress. Like, it's such a sad thing that I don't know. I'd like to think that maybe we're in a little better shape than the news would have you believe, but
yeah, it's hard to tell sometimes.
Very depressing. That yeah.
I mean, there's good sides of it too, because sometimes you'll see the rallies of when people were like protesting the Nazis and stuff, because then you'd see people coming together and stuff. And then a few rallies about love and togetherness, and that's all good. I mean, it's positive.
Yeah. Whatever. Let's not have any kind of group that protests on behalf of a certain race or creed or color. That's just not a good idea. Let's just
it never works out well.
Let's just not do that. That's been Drive.
Yeah, that's our thoughts on Drive, and a bunch of other unrelated stuff. Yeah, a little less focused than usual, but as we said, we had to put this one together, kind of last minute style, because our original plan fell through. But I think we would like to do some of the other films by Winding Refn, and we'll try to make an effort to do that and bring that to you. And as we said, there's also a few other things that are connected to this, like Driver or Le Samurai, that we've both been interested in doing for a long time. So that those are still probably going to happen sometime in the future too. But we can't tell you about next week because we're not sure. But we'll let you know when we can, and we'll get something together, do a better job, be a little more focused. But yeah.
Well, we thank you for watching, guys.
Thanks a lot for being with us. It's always fun. Always glad to have your feedback and support.
And go to the Twitters and give us any recommendations or opinions, thoughts, whatever. Or you can also post them on this video. We would appreciate it.
Thanks a lot. Okay, so we'll let you know as soon as we can what next episode will be, and be next week. So we will see you in a week's time. Thanks a lot for being here. I'm Cole. That's Jay. Thanks a lot, and we'll see you again from the Pocket Dimension. Bye bye.
Thanks.